My wife abandoned our autistic son 13 years ago and run off with her new, younger boyfriend. I raised my boy alone. At 17, he built in software worth $10.7 million. Then my ex-wife came back with her lawyer, demanding my son's money. I was rattled. My lawyer said, "We might lose." But my son calmly whispered, "Just let her talk." I'm standing at my kitchen window when I see her car pull into the driveway, a silver Mercedes I don't recognize, gleaming like a mirror under the February sky. The snow has been falling since morning, those fat, lazy flakes that seem to drift rather than fall, the kind that make the world feel muffled and distant. I watch the driver's side door open, and for a moment, I think maybe it's a client, someone lost, someone looking for the office building 2 blocks over. Then she steps out. 13 years, 2 months, and 17 days since I last saw her face, and I recognize her instantly. The same auburn hair, though it's styled differently now, shorter, more expensive looking. The same way of tilting her head when she's nervous. The same woman who walked out of our house on a Tuesday morning in October while our 4-year-old son sat at the breakfast table arranging his Cheerios into perfect rows of 5. I don't move. My hands are wrapped around a coffee mug that's gone cold, and I'm watching through the window like this is happening on a screen. Like this is one of those stories you scroll past on your phone at 2 a.m. when you can't sleep. But it's not. It's my driveway. It's my life. And that's Vanessa. She's not alone. A man emerges from the passenger side expensive suit, leather briefcase, the kind of shoes that cost more than my monthly grocery bill. He walks with the confidence of someone who's never lost anything important, never had to rebuild from ashes. A lawyer. Has to be. Behind me, I hear the soft click of fingers on a keyboard. Elliot is in the living room, wearing his noise-canceling headphones, the blue ones he saved up for 2 Christmases ago. He's coding. He's always coding now. Has been for the past 3 years. Ever since he discovered that the logic of programming languages made more sense to him than the chaos of human conversation. I should have known this day would come. Dad? His voice cuts through my paralysis, gentle, questioning. That specific tone he uses when he's noticed something wrong but isn't sure how to name it. I turn. Elliot has pulled one headphone off his ear, his dark eyes fixed on me with that focused intensity that used to worry his teachers. Back before they understood that his different wasn't broken, just different. At 17, he's taller than me now, though he hunches when he's anxious, making himself smaller. He's not hunching now. He's looking at me like I'm a puzzle he's trying to solve, like I'm code that won't compile. Someone's here, I say, and I'm proud that my voice doesn't shake. Your mother. I watch his face. If you don't know him, you might think he shows no reaction. His expression remains neutral, his posture unchanged. But I know him. I know the way his left hand forms a fist against his thigh, the way his breathing shifts from his natural rhythm to something more controlled. I know that he's processing this information the way he processes everything, methodically, carefully, looking for patterns and logic in a situation that has neither. Does she want something? He asks. Of course she does. People don't vanish for 13 years and show up with lawyers because they want to apologize. They show up because they want something, and they think they have the right to take it. The doorbell rings. It's a sound I hear every day. Delivery drivers, neighbors, the kid from down the street selling candy bars for his school band. But today, it sounds like a gunshot, sharp and final. I'll handle it, I tell Elliot. You keep working. No. He stands up, pulling off his headphones completely. I should be there. I want to argue. I want to protect him from this, from her. From whatever fresh damage she's about to inflict. But Elliot is 17 now, not 4. He's built a software platform that 3 venture capital firms are fighting over. He's the one who stayed up until 4 a.m. debugging code that most adult programmers couldn't comprehend. He's earned the right to face this. Okay, I say. But if it gets to be too much, I'll tell you, he finishes. We have these scripts, these pre-agreed phrases that help him navigate social situations. I'll tell you means I need to leave. I'm thinking means give me space. That's interesting means I'm overwhelmed, but trying. We walk to the front door together. Through the frosted glass panel, I can see two silhouettes waiting, patient as executioners. I open the door. "Hello, Marcus," Vanessa says, and her voice is exactly as I remember, soft, musical. The voice that once whispered promises in the dark. It's been a long time. A long time. As if she's been on a business trip. As if she didn't abandon a 4-year-old child who needed her, who screamed for her every night for 6 months straight, who learned to stop screaming only because he learned that no one was coming. Vanessa. I don't invite her in. The cold air rushes past her into the house, but I don't step aside. What do you want? The lawyer clears his throat. Mr. Hayes, my name is Gordon Whitmore. I represent Miss Chen. Chen? The name throws me. You remarried? Divorced, she says quickly. 2 years ago. But yes, I kept the name. Marcus, can we come in? It's freezing. Every instinct screams at me to say no, to close the door, to pretend this isn't happening. But Elliot shifts beside me, and I feel his shoulder brush mine, and I remember something my own father told me once. You can't outrun your past, son. You can only decide how you're going to meet it. I step aside. They enter like they're visiting a museum carefully, eyes taking in everything. Our house is modest. A 3-bedroom ranch we've lived in for 15 years, with furniture that's more functional than fashionable, and walls covered in Elliot's achievement certificates and his art from elementary school, the kind of refrigerator drawings I couldn't bear to throw away. I watch Vanessa's gaze land on a crayon, drawing from first grade, a stick figure, family of 2, just me and Elliot, under a yellow sun. This is Elliot, I say, because apparently we're doing introductions like civilized people, like she didn't leave him. Vanessa turns, and I see her face shift as she looks at our son, her son, though she gave up that right 13 years ago. There's something in her expression I can't quite name. Shock, maybe. He doesn't look like the 4-year-old she left. He's nearly a man now, tall and lean, with my dark hair and her olive skin, wearing the hoodie he wears every day, gray because he likes gray, because it doesn't demand attention, as he puts it. Elliot, she breathes. You've grown so much. He doesn't respond. He's looking at her the way he looks at everything, unfamiliar cataloging details, processing information, waiting for clear data before forming conclusions. Perhaps we should sit down, Gordon Whitmore suggests, his voice professionally pleasant, the kind of pleasant that bills $500 an hour. We move to the living room. Vanessa and her lawyer take the couch. Elliot and I sit in the armchairs across from them. The coffee table between us feels like a barrier, like the DMZ between warring nations. Gordon Whitmore opens his briefcase with practiced efficiency. Mr. Hayes, I'll be direct. We're here regarding Elliot's recent business success. Of course they know. The local news ran a story last month. Local teen develops revolutionary accessibility software. The headline made Elliot uncomfortable. He doesn't like being called revolutionary. Says it's hyperbolic and imprecise. But the story was factual enough. 3 years of work, 20,000 lines of code. A platform that helps people with various disabilities navigate digital spaces more easily. 3 venture capital firms bidding. The highest offer, $10.7 million. What about it? I ask. As Elliot's mother, Vanessa begins, and I feel Elliot stiffen beside me. I have certain legal rights. You have no rights. The words come out harder than I intended, sharp as broken glass. You gave up those rights when you left. I never signed away my parental rights, she counters, and there's steel beneath the softness now. I never went through a legal termination process. Legally, Marcus? I'm still his mother. Gordon Whitmore nods, pulling out a document. California family law is quite clear on this matter. Unless parental rights are formally terminated through court proceedings, they remain intact. Miss Chen maintains her legal status as Elliot's mother, which entitles her to certain claims regarding his assets and earnings. The room tilts. I've been a single father for 13 years. I've handled tantrums and meltdowns, and the impossible maze of special education services. I've sat in IEP meetings with teachers who didn't understand him. I've learned about sensory processing disorders and proprioceptive input, and why certain textures make him feel like his skin is on fire. I've been there for every triumph and every failure, every breakthrough and every setback. And now she wants to claim what's his. You can't be serious, I say. I'm very serious, Vanessa replies. I made mistakes, Marcus. I know that. I was young. I was overwhelmed. I wasn't equipped to handle. She glances at Elliot. The challenges. But I've grown. I've changed. And I've missed so much of my son's life. I think I'm entitled to be part of his future. His future. I repeat. You mean his money. I mean both. She leans forward, and I see tears forming in her eyes. Rehearsed or real? I can't tell anymore. I left my son when he was 4 years old. That's my shame, my burden. But he's 17 now, almost an adult, and before he turns 18, before certain legal windows close, I want to establish my parental rights. I want to be involved in decisions about his financial future. You want $10.7 million, I finish. Gordon Whitmore adjusts his glasses. We're proposing a settlement, Miss. Chen would receive 30% of Elliot's current assets in recognition of her parental status and to compensate for the years she was absent from his life. Compensate her? I'm on my feet now, anger flooding through me like electricity. She's the one who left. She's the one who... Dad. Elliot's voice cuts through my rage, calm, measured. That particular tone that means, I need you to stop, I'm thinking. I sit down, force myself to breathe. Elliot is looking at Whitmore, at Vanessa, processing this information with that methodical precision he applies to everything. What percentage were you considering? Elliot asks, his voice neutral as a weather report. Vanessa blinks, clearly not expecting him to engage. 30% seems fair. It would give me approximately $3.2 million, and you'd retain the majority. That's not how math works, Elliot interrupts. If the total is $10.7 million, and you take 30%, that's $3.21 million, leaving me with $7.49 million. But there are taxes. The federal rate for capital gains in California could be as high as 37%, depending on how the sale is structured. State taxes add another 13.3%. If we're talking about ordinary income, we're looking at a combined rate of approximately 50.3%. On $10.7 million, that's $5.38 million in taxes, leaving a net of $5.32 million. 30% of the gross would mean you're actually taking 60% of the net. The room goes silent. Even Gordon Whitmore looks impressed. So you understand the complexity, Vanessa says carefully. This is exactly why I think we need to work together on this. Financial decisions of this magnitude. I understand the complexity, Elliot says. What I don't understand is your standing. I'm your mother. Genetically? Yes. His tone remains flat. Factual. Legally, according to Mr. Whitmore, also yes. Functionally, no. Vanessa flinches. Elliot, I know I hurt you. You didn't hurt me, he says, and there's something devastating in his honesty. I don't remember you well enough to be hurt. I have 3 specific memories of you. 1. You made pancakes shaped like dinosaurs on my 3rd birthday. 2. You read me a book about a bear. I don't remember which book. 3. You were crying in your bedroom, and Dad was standing in the doorway, and you were saying you couldn't do this anymore. He pauses. That's the sum total of my emotional connection to you. 3 memories. None of them include the past 13 years. I watch Vanessa's face crumple, and for a moment, just a moment, I almost feel sorry for her. Almost. Elliot, she whispers, I want to fix that. I want to know you. Want to know you. Want to know you. Why now, he asks. Why not at 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, or 16? Why 17? Why specifically 3 weeks after the news story about my software? Because I didn't know where you were. Because Marcus moved you. Changed your... No, Elliot interrupts. Dad changed our phone number once, 4 years ago, because of spam calls. We've lived in this house since I was 2. Same address. It's in the public record. You could have found us. Why didn't you? Vanessa looks at her lawyer. He gives her a small nod. Permission to pivot. I was building a life, she says. I was working through my own issues. I was, making it about yourself. Elliot finishes. You're still making it about yourself. That's not fair, she protests. Fairness is a social construct, with variable definitions depending on context. Elliot says, I'm stating observable facts. You left. You didn't contact us. You appeared when I had money. You brought a lawyer. These are facts. Gordon Whitmore leans forward. Elliot, I understand you're upset. I'm not upset, Elliot corrects. I'm confused by the logical inconsistency. If she wanted a relationship, she had 13 years to establish one. If she wants money, she should state that clearly, rather than couching it in emotional language about motherhood. I'm watching my son dismantle their arguments with the same precision he uses to debug code, and I'm terrified and proud in equal measure. Vanessa stands abruptly. I didn't want it to be like this. I hoped we could have a civil conversation. This is civil, Elliot says. Civil means polite and not violent. We're being polite. There's no violence. But if that's impossible, then we'll proceed legally. She looks at me now, and there's something cold in her eyes, something that erases any sympathy I might have felt. I spoke with my lawyer before coming here. California law is on my side. I can file for retroactive child support, claim parental rights, petition for a portion of Elliot's assets. I didn't want to do it this way, Marcus. I wanted to settle this privately. Get out, I say quietly. We'll be in touch, Gordon Whitmore says, tucking his documents back into his briefcase. We'll file the paperwork by end of week. They leave. The door closes. The silence rushes back in like water filling a ship. I turn to Elliot. He's staring at the space where they were sitting, his expression unreadable. Are you okay? I ask. I'm thinking, he says. I give him space, walking to the kitchen, needing to do something with my hands. I'm washing dishes that are already clean when he appears in the doorway. Dad, he says, we need a lawyer. A good one. I know. I'll call Tom Brennan first thing tomorrow. He helped with the divorce. No. Elliot's voice is firm. Not a divorce lawyer. We need someone who specializes in family law and intellectual property. Someone who understands both the parental rights issues and the software licensing complexities. That's going to be expensive, El. I have $10.7 million, he says. Potentially. I turn off the water. Dry my hands. You heard what she said. The law might be on her side. Maybe, Elliot says. He walks to the window, looks out at the snow that's still falling, covering her tire tracks in the driveway. But she made a mistake. What mistake? He turns to me, and there's something in his eyes I've never seen before, something sharp and calculating and utterly calm. She assumed I didn't prepare for this possibility, he says. She assumed I'm just a kid who got lucky with code. He pauses. She assumed wrong. What did you do? Nothing yet, he says. But when she files her paperwork, when we go to court, when her lawyer starts presenting their case, he smiles, just slightly. Just let her talk, Dad. Just let her talk. And outside, the snow keeps falling, silent and relentless, covering everything in white. The law office of Patricia Mendez sits on the 14th floor of a glass building downtown, the kind of place where every surface reflects light and money. I'm sitting in a leather chair that probably cost more than my couch, watching the city spread out below us like a circuit board, streets as connections, buildings as components, people as data points, moving through predetermined paths. Elliot is beside me, perfectly still except for his fingers, which tap against his thigh in sets of 4. 4 taps, pause. 4 taps, pause. It's his self-regulation technique, something his occupational therapist taught him years ago. When the world gets too loud, too bright, too much, he counts by fours, heartbeats, breaths, taps. Patricia Mendez is reading through the documents Gordon Whitmore sent, over 47 pages of legal language that essentially says Vanessa Chen wants her son's money and California law might let her take it. This is comprehensive, Patricia says finally, looking up. She's in her mid-50s, with silver-streaked black hair pulled into a bun, and eyes that miss nothing. Tom Brennan, my divorce lawyer from 13 years ago, recommended her with 6 words. She's expensive, brilliant, and ruthless. Right now, I need all 3. They've built a solid case on the parental rights angle. Your ex-wife never formally terminated her rights, never signed any relinquishment papers, because she just left, I say. She didn't go through channels. She just disappeared, which, ironically, works in her favor now. Patricia sets the documents down. The court tends to view formal termination as a protective measure for the child. The fact that it didn't happen suggests that some connection, however minimal, was maintained. There was no connection, I say, and I can hear my voice rising. No calls, no letters, no birthday cards, nothing. Can you prove that? The question stops me cold. Can I prove absence? Can I prove 13 years of silence, of waiting, of Elliot asking where his mother was and me having no answer that made sense? I kept records, Elliot says quietly. We both turn to look at him. Of the absence, of the silence. Patricia leans forward, interested. What kind of records? When I was 7, I started having panic attacks. The therapist said it would help if I documented my feelings, so I started keeping a journal. He pauses, taps 4 times. I wasn't very good at documenting feelings, but I was good at documenting facts, dates, times, attempts at contact. You tried to contact your mother? Patricia asks gently. 5 times, Elliot says. I found her email address when I was 9, through a school friend's mother who knew someone who knew someone. I sent her an email. No response. I tried again at 10, 11, 12, and 13, all documented, all time-stamped, all unanswered. I'm staring at my son, and I feel like someone has reached into my chest and squeezed. I didn't know. He never told me. All those years, he was reaching out to her in secret, hoping, waiting, and getting nothing back. Elliot, I start, but he shakes his head. It's fine, Dad. I stopped at 13. I realized the probability of response was statistically insignificant. He turns to Patricia. I also documented every instance where parental presence was legally or socially expected. School events requiring parental attendance. Medical appointments requiring parental consent. IEP meetings where both parents were requested. I have a spreadsheet. Would that be helpful? Patricia's expression shifts something between admiration and sadness. That would be extremely helpful. May I ask why you kept such detailed records? Elliot is quiet for a moment. 4 taps. 4 taps. Because I knew she might come back, he says finally. Not because she missed me, but because wanting something is different than wanting someone. I learned that early. I learned that people come back when you have something they need, not when you need them. The office feels too small suddenly, the air too thin. This is what she did to him. Not just abandonment that would have been clean, comprehensible. She taught him that love is conditional, that presence is transactional, that he wasn't enough to make someone stay. Your son is a very smart young man, Patricia says to me, but she's looking at Elliot with something like respect. These records could be crucial. They establish a pattern of abandonment and neglect that contradicts her claim of wanting a parental relationship. What about the money? I ask. Can she claim it? Patricia sighs, and it's not a reassuring sound. California law is complicated here. Technically, parental rights include some claim to a minor's assets, especially earnings. But, and this is important, there are exceptions for intellectual property created by the minor independently. The software is his. I say, he built it himself. I helped him incorporate the business. helped him navigate the legal paperwork. But the code, the concept, the execution, that's all Elliot. Good, that helps, but we need to prove it. We need documentation of development, process records, proof that this wasn't a collaborative effort with parental guidance, but an independent creation. I have that, Elliot says. I have every version of the code saved, with timestamps. I have my commit history on GitHub, 3,847 commits over 3 years. I have documentation of every feature, every bug fix, every design decision. I even have video logs. Video logs? Patricia asks. I recorded myself coding sometimes, for debugging purposes. If I got stuck on a problem, I'd record myself talking through it. I have approximately 340 hours of footage. He pauses. Would that be admissible as evidence? Patricia allows herself a small smile. Mr. Hayes Elliott, you may have just saved this case, but I'm stuck on something else. Why? I ask my son. Why record everything? Why document everything? He looks at me, and I see that same expression from 3 days ago, when Vanessa was sitting in our living room, that calculating calm. Because I'm autistic, Dad. Because the world expects me to prove myself constantly. Because I learned young that what other people can claim through charm or tears or social manipulation, I have to prove through data. 4 taps. Because I knew that if I ever created something valuable, someone would try to take it. I just didn't know it would be her. The flashback comes uninvited, the way they always do. Elliot is 7 years old, small for his age, sitting at the kitchen table with his homework spread out in front of him. It's a math worksheet, simple addition, but he's crying. What's wrong, buddy? I ask, sitting down beside him. I can't do it, he sobs. I can't make my brain work the normal way. There is no normal way, I tell him. Just your way. But my way is wrong. Mrs. Peterson said I need to show my work like everyone else. But I don't work like everyone else. I see the answer, but I can't explain how. And if I can't explain how, it doesn't count. I look at the worksheet. Every answer is correct. But there's no work shown, no step-by-step process, just answers that appeared in his brain fully formed, the way birds know to fly south. Okay, I say. Then we'll learn to translate. You see the answer your way. Then we'll figure out how to show the steps, so Mrs. Peterson understands. That's lying, he says. That's putting fake steps for an answer I didn't get that way. It's not lying. It's translation. You're showing the path you would have taken, even if you took a shortcut. Think of it as subtitles. He considers this, his tears slowing. Subtitles for my brain? Exactly. He picks up his pencil and starts writing out steps, methodical, careful, translating his intuition into a language that fits the expected format. That's when I realize my son is going to spend his whole life translating himself for a world that doesn't speak his language. Mr. Hayes? Patricia's voice pulls me back. Are you all right? Fine, I say. Just thinking. We spend the next 2 hours going through strategy. Patricia is thorough, clinical, walking us through worst-case scenarios and best-case outcomes. The worst case, Vanessa gets full parental rights reinstated, claims 30% of Elliot's assets, plus retroactive child support. The best case? The court recognizes her abandonment, denies her claims entirely, and we walk away clean. What's the most likely case? I ask. Patricia hesitates, which tells me everything I need to know. Somewhere in the middle. The court will probably acknowledge her abandonment, but also recognize her legal standing as a parent. We might be looking at a settlement, maybe 10–15% of the assets, structured as a one-time payment in exchange for formally terminating her parental rights. That's still $1.5 million, I say, for doing nothing, for being absent. I know it's not fair. It's not about fair, Elliot interrupts. Fair is a social construct, but it is about accurate accounting. She's claiming a debt owed, but debts work both ways. If she wants credit for being a parent, we should calculate the debit for being absent, Patricia looks at him curiously. What do you mean? I mean, we should countersue, Elliot says calmly. For child support. 13 years of unpaid child support. We should calculate exactly what she would have owed under California law, adjust for inflation and interest, and present that as an offset to any claims she's making now. I watch Patricia's expression shift from curiosity to understanding to something that might be admiration. That's actually brilliant, she says. We can file a counterclaim for retroactive child support. The court can't order her to pay its statute of limitations, but we can present it as evidence of her financial abandonment. It completely undermines her claim that she's acting in Elliot's best interest. Exactly, Elliot says. If she's his mother when there's money to gain, she was his mother when there was money to contribute. You can't claim the benefits of a relationship while denying the obligations. How do you know about countersuits? I ask. Research, Elliot says simply. I've been researching family law for 3 years. Since I started developing the software, I knew that if it became valuable, there would be legal complications. I wanted to be prepared. 3 years. He was 14 when he started planning for this. While other kids were worried about homework and acne and who liked whom, my son was preparing for legal warfare against a mother who might or might not ever return. What else have you prepared? I ask. He looks at me, and there's something ancient in his eyes. Something that doesn't belong in a 17-year-old's face. A lot, he says. But we need to wait. We need to let her build her case first. We need to let her talk. That night, after the meeting, after dinner, after Elliot has retreated to his room with his headphones and his code, I sit in the kitchen with a glass of whiskey I'm not drinking. The house is quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator and the distant click of Elliot's keyboard. I'm thinking about scars. Not the visible kind, the scraped knees and split lips of childhood, but the invisible ones. The ones that reshape how you see the world, how you trust, how you love. Elliot has scars. I put some of them there myself, the times I was too tired, too frustrated, too human to be the perfect father he needed. The times I yelled when I should have stayed calm. The times I dismissed his concerns because I couldn't understand them. But most of his scars came from her. From the absence that taught him he wasn't enough. From the silence that taught him love is conditional. From the abandonment that taught him to document everything because trust is a luxury he can't afford. My phone buzzes. A text from Tom Brennan. Heard you retained Patricia? Good choice. That woman is a shark. You're in good hands. I type back. Hope so. This is going to get ugly. It already is ugly, he responds. Now, you're just making it official. I set the phone down and finally take a sip of the whiskey. It burns, but it's a clean burn, honest. The kitchen door opens, and Elliot appears, still wearing his headphones around his neck like a talisman. Can't sleep? I ask. Don't want to, he says. Thinking about the case. You should rest. We have time. We have 17 days before the hearing. He sits down across from me, and I need to ask you something. Okay. Why didn't you tell me you knew she might come back? His voice is calm, but there's something underneath it. Something sharp. You weren't surprised when you saw her car. You said, I should have known this day would come. Why? I should lie. I should protect him from this too. But he's 17, and he's documented everything, and he deserves the truth. Because I've been tracking her. I admit. Not actively, not obsessively, but I set up a Google alert with her name years ago. I knew when she remarried. I knew when she divorced. I knew when she moved to San Francisco. I knew. I pause. I knew when the news about your software went viral, and I knew she'd see it. You've been waiting for her, Elliot says. I've been preparing for her. I correct. There's a difference. What preparations did you make? I walk to my office, a converted bedroom with a desk and a filing cabinet, and pull out a folder. It's thick, organized with tabs and labels. I bring it back to the kitchen and set it in front of him. What is this? He asks. Evidence, I say. Every email I sent to her family trying to find her. Every certified letter that came back, undeliverable. Every photograph from every school event where you were the only kid with just one parent. Every medical form, every permission slip, every emergency contact list that had my name twice because there was no one else. Elliot opens the folder. He's quiet as he flips through the pages, his fingers gentle on the paper as if it might disintegrate. You kept everything, he says. I kept receipts, I tell him, because I knew that someday someone might try to rewrite history. Someone might try to claim they were there when they weren't. And I wanted proof. I wanted evidence that we did this, you and me, that we survived without her. He closes the folder carefully. We're similar, he says. You and me. We both prepare. We both document. We both know that the world doesn't take your word for things. You need proof. Scars are receipts, I say. And I don't know where the words come from, but they feel true. They prove something happened. They prove you survived it. Elliot nods slowly. He's quiet for a long moment, and I can see him processing, cataloging, filing this information away in whatever complex system his brain uses to make sense of the world. Dad, he says finally, when we go to court, when she presents her case, when her lawyer talks about parental rights and legal standing and all of it, yeah? Just let her talk, he says again. Let her say everything she wants to say. Let her build her entire argument. Let her think she's winning. And then, he looks at me, and that ancient expression is back, that calculating calm. And then I'll show them what I've prepared, he says. And then they'll understand. Understand what? That I'm not a child anymore, he says. That I haven't been a child for a very long time. That I learned from the best teachers, abandonment and necessity. And those teachers don't raise victims, they raise survivors. He stands up, takes his folder of evidence, and walks back to his room. I hear his door close, hear the soft sound of his keyboard starting up again, and I sit in the kitchen, in the quiet, and I think about my son. He's 17 years old. He built a software platform worth $10.7 million. He documented 13 years of abandonment with the precision of a forensic accountant. He's been preparing for this battle for 3 years. And Vanessa, who left, who disappeared, who thinks she can waltz back in with a lawyer and a smile and take what's his, has no idea what's coming. Outside, the snow has stopped falling. The world is white and clean and silent, like a blank slate, like a fresh start, like the calm before a storm. The deposition is scheduled for March 15th, the Ides of March, which feels almost too symbolic to be coincidence. We're in a conference room that's trying too hard to look neutral. All beige walls and generic landscape prints. A long table that could seat 12 but holds only 6 of us. Vanessa and Gordon Whitmore on one side, Elliot, Patricia, and me on the other. A court reporter at the head, fingers poised over her stenotype machine like a pianist waiting for the downbeat. This is the part where both sides show their cards before trial, where lawyers ask questions under oath, where contradictions get exposed, where cases get won or lost in rooms no one ever sees. Patricia warned me this would be difficult. They're going to ask about your fitness as a parent, she said. They're going to imply that Vanessa left because you were inadequate. They're going to dig into every mistake you've made over the past 13 years and present it as evidence that she should have custody now, or at minimum, financial control. Let them, Elliot said, when I told him. Let them ask whatever they want. Now, sitting here watching Gordon Whitmore shuffle his papers with practiced efficiency, I understand what he meant. You can't defend yourself against accusations that haven't been made yet. You have to let them speak first. You have to let them commit to their story. Mr. Hayes, Whitmore begins, his voice cordial as poison. Thank you for being here today. I know this is difficult. I don't respond. Patricia told me to answer only direct questions, nothing more. Let's start with the basics. You and Miss Chen were married in 2008, correct? Yes. And Elliot was born in 2009? April 14th, 2009. When did you first notice signs that Elliot might be autistic? The question catches me off guard. Not because it's unexpected Patricia said they'd go there, but because of how he phrases it. Might be. As if Elliot's diagnosis is speculation rather than documented fact. He was diagnosed at 3 years old, I say. by Dr. Sarah Chen at the Valley Developmental Center. But you suspected before then? We noticed developmental differences. Yes. He didn't speak until he was 2.5. He had sensory sensitivities. He organized things in patterns. And how did Miss Chen react to these concerns? I glance at Vanessa. She's staring at the table, her expression carefully neutral. She was worried. I say, we both were. Worried enough that it strained your marriage? Patricia tenses beside me, but I know where this is going. They're building a narrative. Overwhelmed mother, struggling child, inadequate father, abandonment as self-preservation rather than selfishness. Our marriage had strains, I admit. Parenting a special needs child is challenging, but that's not why she left. No? Then why did she leave, Mr. Hayes? I could say a lot of things here. I could talk about the boyfriend, the one she met at her yoga studio, 23 years old, with trust fund money and no responsibilities. I could talk about the weekend. She told me she needed space to find herself, which apparently meant finding herself in his apartment. I could talk about the note she left. I can't do this anymore. I'm sorry, stuck to the refrigerator with a magnet shaped like a pineapple. But Patricia's hand touches my arm gently, a silent reminder. Stick to facts, not emotions. You'd have to ask her, I say. Whitmore smiles like I've given him exactly what he wanted. We will. But I'm asking about your perception. Did Miss Chen ever express feeling unsupported by you? She expressed feeling overwhelmed. By the child's needs? By everything. Work, parenting, life. And did you help with that? Did you take on more responsibilities? The implication is clear. I failed her. I drove her away through negligence or incompetence or both. I worked full-time. I say. I came home every night. I did half the bedtime routines, half the doctor's appointments, half the IEP meetings when Elliot started school. I cooked dinner 4 nights a week. But you didn't do enough to make her stay. It's not a question, but I answer anyway. Nothing I could have done would have made her stay. She didn't leave because of Elliot's autism. She left because she wanted a different life, one without us in it. Objection, Patricia says. Speculation. Withdrawn, Whitmore says smoothly. He flips to a new page. Mr. Hayes, after Miss Chen left, did you attempt to find her? Yes. How? I called her cell phone. It was disconnected. I called her parents. They said they hadn't heard from her. I drove to her sister's house in Sacramento. She wasn't there. I hired a private investigator for 3 months, but he couldn't find a current address. And then you gave up? The words sting because there's truth in them. I did give up, eventually. Not because I stopped caring where she was, but because I had a 4-year-old who needed me more than I needed to chase a ghost. I prioritized my son's needs over my ex-wife's location, I say. Noble, Whitmore says, and there's sarcasm in his tone that the court reporter can't capture. And in those 13 years, did you ever try to contact Miss Chen again? No. Why not? Because she made it clear she didn't want to be found. Or perhaps because you wanted to raise Elliot alone? Perhaps because you saw an opportunity to have full control? Objection, Patricia says sharply. Argumentative. Sustained, says the court reporter automatically, though we're not technically in court. It's a rhythm they all know, a dance of objections and withdrawals. Whitmore moves on. Let's talk about Elliot's software. When did he start developing it? 3 years ago. He was 14. And what was your involvement in the development process? This is the crucial question, the one that determines whether Elliot's software is truly his or a collaborative family effort. I provided logistical support, I say carefully, using the language Patricia and I rehearsed. I helped him set up an LLC for legal protection. I reviewed contracts when venture capital firms started showing interest. But the code, the concept, the development that was entirely his work. Entirely? Whitmore leans forward. You never suggested features? Never helped debug? Never contributed ideas? Never contributed ideas? Never? I can barely work Excel, I say. I definitely didn't contribute to coding a complex accessibility platform. But you must have provided some guidance. You're his father. Surely you were involved. I was involved in feeding him, I interrupt, in making sure he slept occasionally, in reminding him to shower. But the software, that's all Elliot. Whitmore makes a note. I can't tell if I've helped or hurt our case. Mr. Hayes, are you aware that under California law, parents have certain rights to their minor children's earnings? I'm aware. And yet you helped Elliot set up a corporation that would shield those earnings from parental claims? Patricia tenses again, but this time I'm ready. I helped him set up a corporation because 3 lawyers told me it was the responsible thing to do, because protecting intellectual property requires proper business structure. Because I wanted my son to learn how to manage his assets properly. I pause. And yes, because I knew that if his mother ever came back, she'd try to take what he built. So you admit you were actively working to exclude Miss Chen from Elliot's financial success? I admit I was protecting my son from someone who abandoned him. Objection, Whitmore says. Characterization, but the court reporter is already typing it. The words are in the record now. Whitmore shifts tactics. Let's talk about Elliot's current living situation. He still lives with you, correct? Yes. And at 17, that's a bit unusual, isn't it? Most teenagers want independence. Most teenagers aren't autistic, I say. Elliot functions very well, but he thrives with structure and routine. Living at home provides that. Or perhaps it provides you with control over his assets. The accusation hangs in the air like smoke. I feel Elliot shift beside me. But Patricia puts a hand on his arm, keeping him still. My son is not my ATM. I say quietly. I work as an IT consultant. I make $65,000 a year. I pay my own mortgage, my own bills. I haven't touched a penny of Elliot's money. Yet you'll benefit indirectly, won't you? When the software sells, when he has millions, you'll still be his father, still have access. I'll still be his father, regardless of his bank account, I say. That's the difference between us and Vanessa. I didn't need him to be successful to stay. The memory arrives sharp as a knife. Elliot is 9 years old, and we're sitting in the principal's office for the 3rd time this month. He's gotten into another altercation, their word, not mine, with a classmate who kept touching his things despite being asked to stop. He pushed me, the other kid is saying, tearful and indignant. For no reason. I asked him 7 times to stop touching my pencils, Elliot says, his voice flat. He touched them 8 times. That's not no reason. The principal, Mrs. Davidson, looks at me with that expression I've learned to recognize. Pity, mixed with judgment. Poor father, with difficult child. Mr. Hayes, I understand that Elliot has special needs. He has autism. I correct. Not special needs. Autism. But that doesn't excuse physical violence. He didn't punch him, I point out. He pushed his hand away. There's a difference. The point is, Elliot needs to learn appropriate responses to frustration. I want to scream. I want to ask why the other kid doesn't need to learn appropriate responses to being told no 7 times. I want to ask why my son has to accommodate everyone else's behavior, but no one has to accommodate his. Instead, I say, he's learning. We're working on it. But maybe we could also work on teaching the other children to respect boundaries when someone clearly states them. Mrs. Davidson sighs. Mr. Hayes, I understand you're raising Elliot alone, and that must be difficult. We're doing fine, I say. But perhaps he would benefit from some additional structure, a more stable home environment. Have you considered? She trails off, but the implication is clear. Have I considered giving up? Have I considered residential programs? Have I considered that I'm not enough? We're doing fine, I repeat, and I take Elliot's hand. He hates hand-holding usually, but he lets me, and we leave. In the car, he's quiet for a long time. Then, Dad, am I too hard to take care of? My heart breaks, shatters, reforms. No? I tell him, you're not hard to take care of. The world is hard. People are hard. But you're my son. And that's the easiest thing I've ever been sure about. Mr. Hayes, Whitmore's voice pulls me back. Did you hear the question? Could you repeat it? I asked if you've ever considered that having Miss Chen involved in Elliot's life might be beneficial for him. A maternal influence. He's 17. I say. He's graduating high school in 3 months. He doesn't need a maternal influence. He needs stability, consistency, things she's never provided. Things you've poisoned him against her to ensure she can't provide, Whitmore counters. I've never said a bad word about her to him, I say, and it's true. Every question he asked about why she left, I told him I didn't know. Every time he asked if it was his fault, I told him no. I didn't have to poison him against her. She did that herself, by being absent. Whitmore's expression hardens. We're done with Mr. Hayes for now. I'd like to depose Elliot. Patricia shakes her head. He's a minor. We're not putting him through this without— I'll do it, Elliot says. We all turn to look at him. He's been silent this entire time, watching, listening, that same calculating calm on his face. Elliot, you don't have to, I start. I want to, he says. He looks at Whitmore. I'll answer your questions. All of them. Patricia leans in, whispers something to him. He nods once, then settles back in his chair, hands folded on the table. Whitmore looks pleased, like a cat who's spotted a mouse. Elliot, he begins, his voice gentler now, almost fatherly. Thank you for being willing to talk with us. I know this is difficult. It's not difficult, Elliot says. Difficult is a subjective assessment. This is a legal proceeding. I'm providing testimony. Whitmore blinks, adjusting. Right. Well, let's start simply. Do you remember your mother? I have 3 specific memories of her, Elliot says. I mentioned them during her initial visit. Would you like me to repeat them? That's all right. Do you have any feelings about her absence from your life? Feelings are complex neurochemical responses, Elliot says. I experience them, but find them difficult to articulate in the way you're probably expecting. Try. Whitmore encourages. I feel disappointed, Elliot says. Not in an emotional sense, but in a logical one. A parent is supposed to provide care, protection, and support. She failed to meet that standard. The disappointment is factual, not emotional. Whitmore frowns. And if she wanted to be part of your life now, to rebuild that relationship, why would I want that? Elliot asks, genuinely curious. What benefit would I derive from a relationship with someone who demonstrated, through 13 years of absence, that I'm not a priority for her? She's your mother. Genetically, Elliot interrupts. But the role of mother requires more than genetics. It requires presence, consistency, and care. She's provided none of those things. People make mistakes, Elliot. People deserve second chances, do they? Elliot tilts his head, considering. That's an interesting moral framework. Does the person who was harmed get to decide if a second chance is warranted, or is it automatically owed? Whitmore shifts in his seat, and I realize what's happening. He came here expecting a confused teenager, someone he could manipulate with appeals to emotion and family. Instead, he's getting cross-examined by a 17-year-old who thinks in pure logic. Let's talk about your software, Whitmore says, changing tactics. You created it independently? Yes. No help from your father? He provided meals and shelter. That's not the same as technical assistance. No help from anyone else? Teachers? Mentors? I watched YouTube tutorials. I read documentation. I participated in online forums under a pseudonym. The development was independent. And you're planning to sell it? I've received 3 offers. I'm evaluating them for $10.7 million. That's the highest current offer, yes. That's a lot of money for a 17-year-old. It's a lot of money for anyone, Elliot says. Age is irrelevant to market value. Don't you think your mother deserves some portion of that? She gave birth to you. She raised you for 4 years. She was present in my home for 4 years, Elliot corrects. Presence and raising are different things. And if we're calculating value for effort, I'd need a detailed breakdown of her contributions versus my father's contributions over the full 17 years. Would you like me to create that spreadsheet? Whitmore stares at him. Vanessa is very still, her face pale. That won't be necessary, Whitmore says finally. It's not a problem, Elliot continues. I enjoy data analysis. We could calculate the cost of housing, food, medical care, education, therapy, special equipment for sensory needs, and time investment. Then we could compare what she contributed during her 4 years of presence versus what my father contributed over 13 years of sole custody. I estimate the ratio would be approximately 1 to 47 in favor of my father. Would that be helpful for your case? The room is silent, except for the court reporter's fingers on her machine, capturing every word. Whitmore closes his folder. I think we're done here. Are you sure? Elliot asks. I have more data if you need it. We're done, Whitmore repeats. Patricia is trying not to smile. I can see it in the way her lips press together, the slight crinkle at the corner of her eyes. We gather our things. As we're leaving, Elliot pauses at the door and looks back at Vanessa. She meets his eyes for the first time today. You asked if I remember you, he says. I do. I remember the dinosaur pancakes. They were good. You should have stayed for the rest of them. Then he walks out, leaving her sitting there with tears streaming down her face and a lawyer who's just realized he's outmatched. In the elevator, Patricia finally lets the smile show. That was extraordinary. That was Tuesday, I say, and I pull my son into a hug he tolerates for exactly 4 seconds before pulling away. The trial is in 9 days, Elliot says. She'll change tactics now. They'll come back harder. Let them, Patricia says. You just showed them exactly what they're up against. But Elliot shakes his head. No, I showed them what they expect to see. A smart kid with data. That's not what wins this. Then what does? I ask. He looks at me with those ancient eyes. Truth, he says. Not facts. Truth. There's a difference. And I realize my son has been playing chess while everyone else is playing checkers. The elevator doors open onto the lobby, and we step out into the afternoon sun. 9 days until trial. 9 days until Vanessa tries to take what's his. 9 days until my son reveals whatever truth he's been holding back. I just hope I'm ready for it. The week before trial moves like water through cupped hands, impossible to hold, impossible to stop. I watch the days slip past in a blur of meetings with Patricia, document reviews, and Elliot's unnervingly calm preparation. He treats the upcoming trial like he treats debugging code, methodically identifying problems, testing solutions, preparing for every possible edge case. It's Friday evening, 5 days before we face Vanessa in court, and I find Elliot in his room surrounded by papers. Not physical papers, he hates the texture of most paper, says it makes his teeth hurt somehow, but papers on screens. 3 monitors display spreadsheets, documents, timelines. His wall is covered in sticky notes, arranged in a pattern only he can decipher, connected by red string, like something from a conspiracy theorist's fever dream. What is all this? I ask from the doorway. He doesn't look up from his keyboard. Evidence architecture. Evidence architecture? Every piece of evidence tells a story, he explains, still typing. But stories need structure. Beginning, middle, end, setup, conflict, resolution. I'm organizing our evidence into a narrative that the court can follow. I step into the room, careful not to disturb the papers scattered on the floor in what appears to be a deliberate pattern. Patricia's handling the evidence presentation. Patricia is handling the legal framework, Elliot corrects. I'm handling the emotional framework. There's a difference. You don't do emotional frameworks. He finally looks at me, and there's something in his expression I can't quite read. I don't experience emotions the way other people do. That doesn't mean I don't understand them. It just means I had to learn them like a foreign language. Grammar, syntax, vocabulary. He gestures to his center monitor. It's displaying a timeline, a horizontal line marked with dates, events, annotations, our lives. mapped out in data points. This is 13 years, he says. 156 months. 4,745 days. I've marked every significant event. Every birthday she missed. Every parent-teacher conference where you came alone. Every hospital visit when I had my surgeries. I'd forgotten about the surgeries. 2 of them, one at age 6 to remove his adenoids when his sleep apnea got dangerous. Another at 12 to repair a broken arm after a meltdown led to him punching a wall. Both times, I'd been there. Both times, I'd held his hand as they put him under. Been there when he woke up, confused and scared. Why are you cataloging all this? I ask. Because Whitmore is going to argue that her absence was temporary, a mistake, a period of personal crisis that's now resolved. He points to the timeline. But temporary has a different meaning when you map it against a childhood. Look. He clicks, and the timeline zooms in. Each year is now visible in detail, segmented by developmental milestones. Age 4 to 5, learning to read. She missed it. Age 6 to 7, learning to ride a bike. She missed it. Age 8 to 9, first real friend, Daniel Kraus, who moved away after 6 months, which devastated me for a year. She missed it. He scrolls through the years. First day of middle school. First panic attack. First time I wrote a complete program. First time someone called me a slur. First time I understood what that slur meant. She missed all of it. The weight of it settles over me like snow. 13 years of absence, mapped out in painful detail. Elliot, I start, but he's not done. And here, he says, clicking to bring up another document. This is what she didn't miss. It's a shorter list, much shorter. April 2015, remarried to David Chen. June 2016, promoted to VP of Marketing at Solis Tech. October 2017, purchased home in San Francisco, $1. 2M. March 2019, vacation to Italy, Instagram posts. July 2020, divorced from David Chen. September 2023, started position at Meridian Capital. December 2025, appeared at our house with lawyer. I've been tracking her, Elliot says quietly, for 5 years, since I was 12, since I stopped trying to email her and started trying to understand her. I sink into his desk chair, stunned. How? Social media, public records, LinkedIn. It's not hard to find information about people who aren't hiding. He pulls up a folder of screenshots, Facebook posts, Instagram photos, LinkedIn updates. A whole life, lived publicly, documented carelessly by someone who never thought her abandoned son would be watching. There's a photo from 2018. Elliot continues, clicking through. She's at a beach in Maui. The caption says, "Finally learning to prioritize myself." That was the year I had my worst meltdown, the one where I ended up in the hospital for 3 days because I couldn't stop hurting myself. The image on screen shows Vanessa in a bikini, smiling at the camera, a drink in her hand. She looks happy, carefree, like she doesn't have a son who needed her. I could have died that week, Elliot says, his voice still calm, still measured. The doctors said my cortisol levels were dangerously high, that I was in a state of toxic stress, that if it had gone on much longer, I could have had a stroke. I was 13 years old, and I could have had a stroke. I didn't know you knew that, I say. The doctors told me privately. I read your medical records, he says simply. You keep them in the filing cabinet. The lock is easy to pick. I should be angry about the privacy violation, but I can't find it in me. He was looking for answers. He's been looking for answers his whole life. Why didn't you tell me you were tracking her? I ask. Because you would have tried to stop me. You would have said it was unhealthy, that I should focus on my own life. He minimizes the photos, and I'm grateful not to see Vanessa's smile anymore. But I needed to understand. In programming, when something breaks, you don't just fix it. You figure out why it broke. You trace the error back to its source. She was my error. I needed to trace her. You're not an error, Elliot. I know that now, he says. But I didn't then. When you're a kid and your mother leaves, the logical conclusion is that you caused it, that you were the problem that needed solving. So I tried to solve myself, tried to be less autistic, less difficult, less me. The memory comes like a punch. Elliot is 10 years old, sitting at the kitchen table with a notebook. He's writing something with intense concentration, his tongue poking out the corner of his mouth the way it does when he's focused. "What you working on, buddy?" I ask. "A list," he says, "of ways to be normal." I sit down next to him. The list is heartbreaking. 1. Make eye contact for 3 seconds minimum. 2. Don't talk about trains. People find it boring. 3. Laugh at jokes even when they don't make sense. 4. Don't correct people when they're wrong. 5. Pretend to like loud places. 6. Don't organize things unless asked. 7. Say, "I'm fine," when people ask how you are. There are 37 items, 37 ways he's trying to erase himself. "El," I say gently, "you don't need to be normal. You just need to be you." "But Mom left because I wasn't normal enough," he says, and there are tears in his eyes. "If I can be more normal, maybe she'll come back." I want to tell him that's not how it works, that his mother's choices weren't his fault, that he's perfect exactly as he is. But he's 10, and he's autistic, and he needs concrete answers, not platitudes. "Your mom left because she couldn't handle her own feelings," I say. "Not because of who you are. You could be the most normal kid in the world, and she still would have left, because the problem was never you, it was always her." He considers this the way he considers everything carefully, logically, looking for the flaw in the argument. "How do you know?" he asks. "Because I know you," I say. "And you're not the kind of kid people leave. You're the kind of kid people are lucky to have." He doesn't believe me. I can see it in his face. But he closes the notebook anyway, and I find it in the trash the next day. And I keep it because someday I want to show him how far he's come from that list of erasure. "I stopped trying to solve myself at 14, Elliot says, pulling me back to the present. That's when I started the software. I realized that if I couldn't fix myself, I could at least help other people who felt broken, make the digital world more accessible, give them tools that the physical world doesn't provide." "Your software is brilliant," I say. "It's functional," he corrects. "But that's not the point. The point is that I built something valuable from the parts of myself that she couldn't accept. My attention to detail, my systematic thinking, my inability to let small problems go unsolved. All the things that made me difficult as a child became advantages as a developer." He pulls up another document, a financial spreadsheet this time. "I've calculated the exact cost of raising me," he says, "month by month. Housing costs allocated by square footage of my room. Food costs based on average consumption. Medical expenses, therapy, doctor visits, medication trials, educational costs, tutors, special programs, assistive technology, clothing, transportation, everything." The numbers are staggering. Not because they're excessive, we lived modestly, but because they're comprehensive. 13 years of care, itemized down to the penny. "The total comes to $347,892, Elliot says. "That's what Dad invested in raising me alone. Not counting his time, which at minimum wage for 13 years would be an additional $284,700, and not counting the emotional labor, which is incalculable." "Why are you calculating this?" I ask, though I'm starting to understand. "Because Whitmore is going to argue that she deserves 30% of my assets. That's $3.21 million, but she contributed $0 to my development. So if we're talking about fair compensation, she should actually owe us, $632,592 in unpaid child support and care expenses. The court won't order her to pay that. I know, statute of limitations, but that's not the point. He looks at me, and his eyes are fierce. The point is making her see it, making everyone see it. She wants to frame this as a mother's rights. I want to frame it as a debtor's obligation. She's not owed anything. She owes everything. I look at my son, this 17-year-old who taught himself advanced mathematics to calculate the cost of his own childhood, who learned to code so he could build value from what others saw as deficits, who spent 5 years tracking a mother who never looked back, and I feel something break open in my chest. Pride, grief, love, terror. Elliot, I say, what are you planning for the trial? He's quiet for a long moment. Then he reaches into his desk drawer and pulls out a small flash drive. It's blue, the same color as his headphones. This, he says, holding it up. This is what I'm planning. What's on it? Everything, he says. Every email I sent her. Every unanswered message. Every piece of evidence that she chose absence. But also, he hesitates. Also the things she doesn't know I have. Like what? You'll see, he says. At the trial, when it's time. Elliot, if you have evidence that could help our case, Patricia needs to see it now. She can't see it yet, he interrupts. Because if she sees it, she'll have to disclose it. Discovery rules. And if Whitmore knows what we have, he'll prepare. He'll find a counterargument. He'll spin it. He sets the flash drive on his desk, next to his keyboard. The only advantage we have is that they think I'm just a smart kid with a calculator. They think this is about numbers and legal precedent. They don't know it's about truth. What truth? He looks at me, and I see that ancient expression again. That weight that doesn't belong in a teenager's eyes. That she didn't just leave us, he says. She replaced us. Before I can ask what he means, his phone buzzes. He glances at it, frowns. It's Patricia, he says. She wants us to come to her office. Tomorrow morning, she says Whitmore filed something new. Saturday morning, we're back in Patricia's office. The city spreads below us like a game board, all clean lines and clear rules. If only life worked that way. Patricia looks tired. There are coffee rings on her desk and papers everywhere. The organized chaos of a lawyer preparing for battle. They filed a motion last night, she says, without preamble, requesting immediate conservatorship over Elliot's assets. What? I'm on my feet. They can't do that. He's 17. He's functional. They're arguing that his autism makes him vulnerable to exploitation. Patricia says that as his mother, Vanessa is concerned about his ability to manage significant wealth. That she wants to protect him. Protect him? The words taste like acid. She wants to protect his money from him. I know, and the judge will know too. This is an overreach, and it makes her look opportunistic. But we need to respond carefully. She looks at Elliot. They're going to request a competency evaluation. A court-appointed psychologist will interview you, assess your decision-making capacity. Let them, Elliot says. I'll pass any evaluation they give me. It's not that simple, Patricia warns. These evaluations aren't just about intelligence. They're about understanding social norms, recognizing manipulation, making decisions that align with typical emotional processing. You're brilliant, Elliot, but you're also autistic. The evaluator might interpret your logical approach as inability to understand emotional consequences. So I should pretend to be neurotypical? Elliot asks. Mask my autism to prove I'm competent? I'm saying we need to be strategic. No, Elliot interrupts. His voice is firm. I spent 10 years trying to be someone I'm not. I'm not doing it anymore. If being autistic means I'm incompetent, then the system is wrong, not me. Patricia and I exchange glances. She's right that this is risky, but he's right that it's wrong. Okay, Patricia says finally. Then we make that the argument. We argue that autism doesn't equal incompetence, that different processing isn't deficient processing. We bring in experts who can testify to your functional capacity. And we bring receipts, I add. School record showing straight A's. Teacher recommendations. The venture capital offers themselves 3 separate firms. Wouldn't offer millions for software built by someone incompetent. Good, Patricia says. That's good. We'll build a case that competency has nothing to do with neurotype. Elliot is quiet, staring out the window at the city below. 4 days, he says. 4 days until trial. Are you ready? Patricia asks. He doesn't answer immediately. He's watching something out the window, maybe the clouds, maybe the traffic, maybe something only he can see. I've been ready for 13 years, he says finally. I just didn't know I was preparing. We leave the office as the sun starts to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Elliot is quiet in the car, his fingers tapping that familiar pattern against his leg. 4 taps. 4 taps. 4 taps. What are you thinking about? I ask. Chess, he says. Chess? In chess, you don't win by making the best move. You win by making your opponent make the worst move. He looks at me. She thinks this conservatorship motion is aggressive. She thinks it shows strength. But it's the worst move she could make. Why? End quote. Because it proves she doesn't see me as a person, he says, just as an asset to be managed. And when the judge sees that, he smiles, just slightly. She'll have shown everyone exactly who she is. Just let her talk, I say, echoing his words from 2 weeks ago. Exactly, he says. Just let her talk. And as we drive home through the gathering dark, I realize that my son isn't just playing chess, he's playing the long game, and he's already won. He just has to prove it. Dr. Sarah Holloway arrives on Monday morning in a silver Prius that parks too carefully in our driveway, taking 3 attempts to center it between the lines. I watch from the kitchen window as she sits in her car for a full minute, reviewing notes, or gathering herself, or both. The sky is heavy with clouds that haven't decided if they want to rain yet, the kind of gray that makes the world feel muted and waiting. This is the court-appointed psychologist, sent to evaluate whether my 17-year-old son is competent to manage his own assets, whether his autism makes him vulnerable, whether he needs his mother who abandoned him 13 years ago to protect him from himself. The irony would be funny if it weren't so devastating. She's here. I call to Elliot. He emerges from his room wearing what he calls his professional casual dark jeans, a button-down shirt in navy blue, his 1 pair of shoes that aren't sneakers. He's brushed his hair, which he rarely bothers with. He looks older than 17, tired. You don't have to do this, I remind him for the 5th time this morning. Patricia said we could fight the evaluation request. And delay the trial another month while they argue about it? No. He adjusts his collar, a gesture that looks borrowed from watching people on TV. Better to do it now. Get it over with. The doorbell rings. I answer it. Dr. Holloway is younger than I expected, maybe 40, with graying blonde hair and eyes that take in everything without seeming intrusive. She's wearing slacks and a cardigan, carefully neutral. Her smile is professional, but not cold. Mr. Hayes, I'm Dr. Holloway. Thank you for agreeing to meet with me today. We didn't agree, I say, then immediately regret the hostility in my tone. I'm sorry. That was rude. Please, come in. She steps inside, and I see her eyes catalog our home the way everyone's do. The modest furniture, the photos on the walls, the organized chaos of 2 people who've built a life together without decoration, consultants, or interior designers. This is Elliot, I say, as my son approaches. Dr. Holloway extends her hand. Elliot looks at it for a moment, evaluating, calculating, then shakes it. Exactly 3 seconds. Firm, but not crushing. The way we practiced years ago when handshakes were new and terrifying. Hello, Elliot, she says. I appreciate you taking the time to talk with me. It's not optional, Elliot points out. The court ordered it. Technically true, she acknowledges with a slight smile. But I appreciate your cooperation nonetheless. We move to the living room. Dr. Holloway settles on the couch, pulling out a tablet and a leather notebook. Elliot sits in his usual chair, the one positioned at a precise angle to the TV, the one with the cushion worn in the exact shape of how he sits. Can I get you anything? I ask. Coffee? Water? Water would be lovely, thank you. I escape to the kitchen, grateful for the task. Holloway explaining the process, an interview lasting approximately 2 hours, some standardized assessments, questions about daily functioning and decision-making. Her voice is calm, measured, the kind of voice that probably works well with anxious patients. I bring her the water. She thanks me, then looks at me with professional kindness. Mr. Hayes, I'll need to speak with Elliot alone for most of this. I know that's difficult, but it's important for the evaluation integrity. Everything in me wants to refuse, wants to stay, to protect him, to make sure she sees him correctly. But Patricia warned me about this. Hovering makes him look dependent. I need to let him handle this himself. Okay, I say. I look at Elliot. I'll be in my office if you need me. I'll be fine, Dad, he says, and I hear the unspoken message. Trust me. I've prepared for this. I leave them alone. My office is directly above the living room. If I stand very still, I can hear the murmur of voices through the floor, though not individual words. I try to answer emails, review code for a client project, but my attention keeps drifting to the ceiling, imagining what's happening below. Is she asking the standard questions? Can you manage your own finances? Do you understand the value of money? Can you recognize when someone is trying to manipulate you? Is she watching how he sits, how he makes or doesn't make eye contact, how he processes language? Is she seeing him or just seeing autism? An hour passes, then another. The voices continue, rising and falling like tides. I think about all the evaluations Elliot has endured over the years. The initial autism assessment at age 3, where we spent 6 hours in a clinic while specialists observed him playing, talking, existing. The IQ test at age 7 that showed his verbal reasoning was in the 99th percentile, but his social reasoning was in the 15th. The executive functioning assessment at age 12 that revealed he could solve complex math problems but struggled to remember to brush his teeth without a checklist. Each evaluation told part of his story, but never all of it. Never the parts that mattered most: his kindness, his loyalty, his capacity to love deeply, even if he expresses it differently, his courage in facing a world that wasn't built for brains like his. My phone buzzes. A text from Patricia. How's it going? I type back. She's with him now. Going on 2 hours. That's good. Thorough is better than rushed. Means she's taking it seriously. Or finding things wrong. Have faith in your kid. He's smarter than both of us combined. I set the phone down and walk to the window. The clouds have finally decided. Rain. Slow and steady. Turning everything silver and blurred. The memory arrives with the rain. Elliot is 6 years old, and we're sitting in yet another therapist's office. This one specializes in social skills training, supposedly. Really, it's ABA therapy rebranded with gentler language, still trying to make autistic kids act neurotypical. The therapist, I don't even remember her name anymore, is showing Elliot flashcards with faces. Happy, sad, angry, surprised. What emotion is this? She asks, holding up, angry. Elliot stares at the cartoon face, the exaggerated downturned mouth and furrowed brows. I don't know, he says. Look at the eyebrows. Look at the mouth. What do you think this person is feeling? I think they're constipated, Elliot says seriously. That's what Dad's face looks like when he has constipation. The therapist looks at me. I try not to laugh. Elliot, that's not appropriate, she says. We need to learn to identify emotions so we can respond correctly in social situations. Why? Elliot asks. Because that's how people communicate. Emotions are important. But I have emotions, Elliot protests. I just don't have them on my face the same way. Why do I have to learn your face language if you don't have to learn mine? The therapist has no answer for this. I do, but it's not one a 6-year-old should have to hear. Because the world demands you adapt to it, not the other way around. Because being in the majority means never having to translate yourself. We stop seeing that therapist after 3 sessions. A door opens downstairs. Footsteps. I emerge from my office and descend to find Dr. Holloway and Elliot in the entryway. She's packing her tablet into a leather bag. He's standing with his hands in his pockets, looking composed, but tired. All done? I ask. For today, yes, Dr. Holloway says. She looks at Elliot. Thank you, Elliot. You were very patient with all my questions. It was fine, he says. Your questions were logical. That made them easier. She smiles at that, a real smile, not a professional one. I'll be submitting my report to the court by Thursday. You should receive a copy through your attorney. What will it say? I ask, unable to help myself. I can't discuss my findings before the official report, she says, but her expression is kind. What I can tell you is that I evaluate based on functional capacity, not diagnostic labels. My job is to assess whether Elliot can make informed decisions about his own welfare and assets. She pauses at the door, hand on the knob. Mr. Hayes, can I speak candidly for a moment? Off the record? Please. I've been doing this for 15 years. I've evaluated hundreds of people, adults and minors, neurotypical and neurodiverse, and I can tell you that competency isn't about being normal. It's about understanding consequences, making reasoned decisions, and having the capacity for self-reflection. She glances at Elliot. Your son has all three, in abundance. The relief is so sudden, I feel lightheaded. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. I still have to write the report, and the court still has to decide. But, she looks between us. You've raised a remarkable young man, Mr. Hayes. Whatever else happens in this case, you should know that. She leaves. The door closes. The rain continues. Elliot stands very still for a moment, then says, I need to go to my room. Are you okay? I'm overwhelmed. I need quiet. Okay, take your time. He disappears upstairs. I hear his door close, the familiar click of his lock. He'll be in there for hours now, processing everything with his headphones on, and his world reduced to code and silence. I sink onto the couch where Dr. Holloway sat, still warm from her presence, and let myself breathe. That evening, Elliot emerges at dinner time. I've made his favorite spaghetti with butter and Parmesan, the way he's eaten it since he was 5. No sauce, because the texture bothers him. We eat in companionable quiet for a while before he speaks. She asked me about Mom, he says. I set down my fork. What did you say? The truth. That I don't remember much about her. That her absence was a constant, not an anomaly. That I've built a functional life without her. And I see no logical reason to alter that now. How did she respond? She asked if I felt angry about the abandonment. He twirls spaghetti around his fork with mechanical precision, exactly 7 strands. Always 7. I told her anger requires emotional investment, and I divested from her when I was 13. Divested, I repeat. It's accurate terminology. I was invested in the idea of her for years. End quote. Brand, which was government, which was wistened. Prend. End quote. End quote. Which was wistened. End quote. I wanted her to come back. I thought if I was good enough, smart enough, normal enough, she'd want me. But when I started tracking her at 12, when I saw all the ways she'd moved on without us, I realized I was investing energy in a losing proposition. He takes a bite, chews exactly 15 times. So I divested, moved my emotional capital elsewhere. Where? I ask, though I think I know, into things with better return on investment. My coding, my education, you. He looks up at me. People who actually showed up. My throat tightens. Dr. Holloway also asked if I understood why Mom might want to be involved now, if I could see her perspective. He sets his fork down, his movements deliberate. I told her I understand perfectly. Mom sees an asset. She wants to claim it. It's rational self-interest. I don't fault her for wanting money. I fault her for pretending it's about motherhood. What did Dr. Holloway say to that? She asked if I thought I could be wrong about Mom's motivations, if maybe she genuinely wants a relationship. Elliot pauses. I told her that people's actions reveal their true intentions better than their words, and Mom's actions over 13 years have been consistent. Absence unless there's something to gain. That's pretty harsh. It's accurate, he he corrects. Harsh implies unnecessary cruelty. I'm stating observable facts. We finish eating. I clear the dishes while Elliot returns to his room. Before he disappears, he stops in the doorway. Dad? Dr. Holloway asked me one more thing at the end. What's that? She asked what I would do if I lost in court. If the judge gave Mom conservatorship over my assets. He's quiet for a moment. I told her I'd appeal. And if the appeal failed, I'd wait 8 months until I turn 18, then reverse any decisions made while I was a minor. I told her I've already researched the legal process for that. That I have contingency plans extending 5 years into the future. Jesus, Elliot. She said most 17-year-olds wouldn't think that far ahead, that most adults don't think that far ahead. He looks at me with those old eyes. I told her most people haven't had to plan their entire lives around the possibility of abandonment. He goes to his room. I stand in the kitchen, hands in soapy water, and I feel something crack in my chest. My son shouldn't have to be this prepared, shouldn't have to calculate contingencies for every possible betrayal, shouldn't have to armor himself against the world at 17, but he does, because she taught him to. Wednesday arrives like a held breath. 2 days before trial, Patricia calls with news Dr. Holloway's report is in. We meet at her office at noon. The report sits on Patricia's desk like a bomb that hasn't decided if it wants to detonate. I've reviewed it, Patricia says. It's actually quite favorable. I exhale. Elliot sits perfectly still, waiting. Patricia reads selected sections aloud. Subject demonstrates exceptional cognitive functioning across all assessed domains. Standardized testing places him in the 99th percentile for logical reasoning, mathematical ability, and abstract problem solving. While he exhibits characteristics consistent with autism spectrum disorder, including differences in social communication and sensory processing, these do not impair his capacity for independent decision-making. When asked about financial planning, subject provided detailed analysis of investment strategies, tax implications, and long-term wealth management that exceeded the understanding of most adults. His approach is methodical and well-researched, showing clear capacity for informed financial decisions. Subject demonstrates unusual emotional maturity regarding his family situation. Rather than responding with typical adolescent volatility, he has processed his mother's abandonment through a logical framework that, while perhaps unconventional, shows sophisticated psychological insight. His ability to separate his emotional responses from his practical decision-making is actually a strength, not a deficit. Patricia looks up. Her conclusion is unambiguous. You have full capacity to manage your own affairs. She recommends against conservatorship. Elliot nods once, as if confirming something he already knew.
When will Whitmore receive this?
He got it this morning, same time we did. Good, Elliot says. He'll have less time to develop counter-arguments. There's something else, Patricia continues. The judge has requested a private chambers meeting tomorrow. Just the judge, both attorneys, no clients. She wants to discuss the possibility of settlement before we go to trial. Settlement? I ask. Why would we settle? We're winning. We might be winning, Patricia corrects. But trials are unpredictable. Even with a favorable psych eval, even with all our evidence, there's risk. The judge might be suggesting settlement as a way to avoid that risk. What kind of settlement would they offer? Elliot asks. Hard to say. Probably something lower than their original demand. Maybe 10–15% of your assets in exchange for full termination of parental rights. That's still over $1 million, I say. I know. For doing nothing, for being absent, I know, Patricia repeats. But it's also certainty. It's closing this chapter forever. No more court dates, no more evaluations, no more looking over your shoulder wondering if she'll come back when you turn 18. Elliot is quiet, his fingers tapping against his thigh. 4 taps, 4 taps, 4 taps. What do you think we should do? Patricia asks him directly. He looks at her, then at me, then out the window at the city, spread below us like a circuit board. I think, he says slowly, that we should go to trial. Elliot, I start. She wants a settlement because she knows she's losing, he continues. The psych eval didn't go her way. The deposition didn't go her way. Every piece of evidence we've presented shows her absence, her choice to leave, her opportunistic return. She's offering settlement because it's the best outcome she can hope for now. Which is exactly why we should consider taking it, Patricia argues gently. Get out while we're ahead. No, Elliot's voice is firm. Because a settlement lets her walk away with money and dignity. It lets her tell herself, and everyone else, that she did the right thing. That she was a concerned mother protecting her son. That she deserves compensation for her genetics. He stands, walks to the window. I don't want her money, he says. I want her truth. I want the court to see exactly who she is and what she did. I want it on the record, official and permanent, that she abandoned her 4-year-old autistic son and only came back when he had value. That's about justice, Patricia says. I understand that, but the legal system isn't always about justice. Sometimes it's about resolution. But then I'll take justice over resolution, Elliot says. He turns back to us, and there's steel in his expression. We go to trial. We present everything. And we let her talk. Patricia looks at me. I look at my son, this 17-year-old who's been planning for this moment for years, who's carried the weight of abandonment with the precision of a mathematician calculating an equation. Okay, I say. We go to trial. Are you sure? Patricia asks. I stand up, walk to where Elliot is standing by the window. Put my hand on his shoulder. He doesn't pull away. I'm sure, I say. We finish this. Outside, the clouds have cleared. The sun breaks through, lighting up the city in sharp relief. 2 days until trial. 2 days until Vanessa has to answer for 13 years of absence. 2 days until my son reveals whatever truth he's been holding on that blue flash drive. We're ready. At least, I hope we are. Thursday passes in a blur of final preparations. Patricia calls 3 times with updates. The judge denied the settlement conference. Whitmore filed 2 additional motions that were both rejected. Discovery deadlines are closed. Everything is locked in now. Tomorrow morning at 9, we walk into Superior Court, Department 12, and face Vanessa Chen across a courtroom instead of a living room. The house feels strange tonight, like it's holding its breath. I make dinner grilled chicken, rice, steamed broccoli, the safe foods that won't upset Elliot's stomach when he's anxious, but neither of us eats much. We push food around our plates in silence, the kitchen clock ticking too loud, counting down to tomorrow. You should get some sleep, I tell him when we've given up pretending to eat. I will, he says, but he doesn't move. He's staring at his water glass, watching condensation run down the side in precise little rivers. Elliot, I'm fine, Dad. You don't have to be fine. It's okay to be nervous. I'm not nervous, he says. Nervous implies uncertainty about outcome. I'm certain about the outcome. Then what are you? He's quiet for a long time. The clock ticks. The refrigerator hums. Outside, a car passes, headlights sweeping across our kitchen wall like a lighthouse beam. I'm angry, he says finally, and the word sounds foreign in his mouth, like he's speaking a language he rarely uses. I've spent 13 years not being angry, being logical, being functional, processing her absence like it's a variable in an equation I needed to solve. But tonight, the night before, I have to sit in a courtroom and prove that I'm competent to manage my own life because the woman who abandoned me thinks she deserves my money. He stops, breathes. Tonight, I'm angry. I reach across the table and put my hand over his. He doesn't pull away. You're allowed to be angry, I say. You've always been allowed. Anger isn't productive. It clouds judgment. It leads to poor decision-making. Anger is human, I counter. It's your brain telling you that something wrong happened. And something wrong did happen, El. You don't have to logic your way out of feeling that. He looks at me, and his eyes are wet. Not crying, Elliot. Rarely cries, but wet enough that I know he's close. I wanted her to come back, he whispers. For so long, I wanted her to come back. And now she has, and I wish she hadn't. I wish she'd stayed away. I wish I could stop wanting to prove myself to her. The confession breaks something in me. All these years, I thought he'd processed it, moved on, Built a life that didn't include the empty space where a mother should be. I didn't realize he was still trying to fill it, still trying to be enough. You don't have to prove anything to her, I say. You've already proven everything to the people who matter. Your teachers, your therapist, your friends, me. You've proven that you can build something extraordinary from nothing but code and determination, that you can take a brain that works differently and make that difference into a superpower. You don't need her validation. I know that intellectually, he says, but knowing and feeling are different processes. Yeah, I agree. They are. We sit in the quiet for a while. Then Elliot stands, picks up his plate, takes it to the sink. I'm going to work for a few hours, he says. It helps, the coding. It makes sense when nothing else does. Okay, but try to sleep eventually. I will, he says again. And this time, I believe him. He disappears upstairs. I clean the kitchen, wash dishes that barely got dirty, wipe counters that are already clean. I'm looking for tasks, for motion, for anything to keep my hands busy and my mind quiet. My phone buzzes. A text from Patricia. Get some rest. Tomorrow's going to be long. I type back, will do. Thank you for everything. Just doing my job, but for what it's worth, I've never been more proud to represent a client. Your kid is remarkable. I know. Good. Make sure he knows, too. I set the phone down and walk to Elliot's room. The door is closed, but I can see light underneath it, hear the soft click of his keyboard. I knock gently. Come in. He's at his desk, 3 monitors glowing in the dark room, code scrolling across the screens in languages I don't fully understand. But I recognize the focused intensity on his face, the way his shoulders relax when he's in flow state, when the world narrows to problems he can solve. Just wanted to say goodnight, I tell him. Good night, Dad. I should leave. Let him work. But something makes me stay. Elle, can I ask you something? Always. The flash drive. The one with all your evidence. What's on it that you haven't shown Patricia? He stops typing, turns in his chair to face me. The blue flash drive is on his desk, next to his keyboard, exactly where it's been for a week. Do you really want to know? He asks. Or do you want to be surprised tomorrow like everyone else? I want to know if you're sure about this. If whatever you're planning won't backfire. I'm sure. How can you be sure? He picks up the flash drive, holds it up to the light. It looks so small, so insignificant. Hard to believe something that size could change everything. Because I've spent 3 years building this moment, he says. Every piece of evidence, every document, every recording. It's not about revenge, Dad. It's about truth. And the truth is that she didn't just leave us. She replaced us. And I can prove it. Replaced us how? You'll see tomorrow, he says. When it's time. He sets the flash drive back down. A period at the end of a sentence I don't fully understand yet. Okay, I say. I trust you. I know you do, he says. That's why this matters. Because you stayed when she left. Because you believed in me when the world said I was broken. Because you let me be autistic instead of trying to fix me. He pauses. Tomorrow isn't just about proving her wrong. It's about proving you right. My throat closes. Good night, kiddo. Good night. I leave him to his code and his plans and his quiet preparation for battle. The memory comes in the dark, uninvited. Elliot is 8 years old, small for his age, sitting in the principal's office again. This time, it's because he corrected his math teacher publicly, proved that her explanation of long division was mathematically imprecise, made her look foolish in front of the class. You can't do that, I tell him in the car afterward. You can't embarrass adults like that. But she was wrong, he protests. She said you bring down the number, but you're not bringing it down. You're shifting your focus to the next decimal place. That's completely different. I know, buddy, and you're right. But being right isn't the same as being kind. So I should let her teach it wrong? You should find a way to be right without making her feel stupid. He's quiet for a long time, processing this impossible equation. How to be smart without making others feel dumb. How to be correct without being cruel. How to exist in a world that punishes him for the very precision it claims to value. That's not fair, he says finally. No, I agree. It's not. But that's the world we live in. And you have to decide if you want to be right or if you want to be happy. Why can't I be both? You can, I tell him. It's just harder. It means learning to translate yourself, to soften your edges without dulling your point. Like what you said about subtitles, he remembers. For my brain, exactly like that. He nods, filing this information away in whatever complex system his mind uses to navigate the world. Dad, he says as we pull into our driveway, do you think Mom left because I couldn't translate myself well enough? Because I embarrassed her like I embarrassed Mrs. Patterson? The question guts me. No, Elle. Your mom left because of her own issues, not because of anything you did or didn't do. You were 4 years old. You couldn't have prevented it. But if you'd been different, you wouldn't be you. And you are exactly who you're supposed to be. He doesn't believe me. I can see it in his face. But I keep saying it anyway, hoping that someday the words will sink in deeper than the doubt. I wake at 3 a.m. to the sound of footsteps in the hallway. Elliot's door opens, closes. I hear him go downstairs, hear the soft beep of the microwave, the familiar sounds of him making chamomile tea, the ritual he uses when sleep won't come. I should let him have his space, but something pulls me out of bed, down the stairs, into the kitchen where I find him sitting at the table in the dark, both hands wrapped around a steaming mug. Can't sleep? I ask. Tried, he says. Brain won't stop. Wanna talk about it? Not really. He takes a sip of tea, makes a face. Still too hot. I sit across from him, and we exist in the quiet for a while. The house settles around us, old wood creaking, the refrigerator cycling on with a soft hum. Do you remember when I was 10? Elliot says eventually. And I asked you why Mom left? I remember. You said she couldn't handle her own feelings, that it wasn't about me. That's right. I've been thinking about that, about feelings and handling them. He sets the mug down carefully, centering it on the table. I don't handle feelings the way other people do. I sort them, categorize them, put them in boxes. Is that wrong? There's no wrong way to feel things, Elle. But there's effective and ineffective. And I'm not sure my way is effective. Because I've spent 13 years sorting my feelings about Mom into neat little boxes, confusion in one box, abandonment in another, anger filed away separately, and I thought that meant I'd processed it. But tonight, sitting here at 3 a.m. making tea because I can't sleep before the trial, he pauses. All the boxes are open, and I don't know how to sort it anymore. I reach across the table, and this time he takes my hand without hesitation. Maybe you don't have to sort it, I suggest. Maybe some things are supposed to be messy. Maybe that's what feelings are, the things that don't fit in boxes. That sounds inefficient. It is, I agree. Feelings are wildly inefficient. But they're also human. And you're allowed to be human. Even if your brain works differently. He's quiet, thumb rubbing across my knuckles in that repetitive pattern he uses when he's self-soothing. I'm scared. He admits quietly. Not of losing the case. Of seeing her. Of sitting in that courtroom and having to look at her and remember that she chose to leave. That I wasn't enough to make her stay. You were always enough. I say fiercely. You were 4 years old. And perfect. And enough. She was the one who wasn't enough. She wasn't strong enough. Or patient enough. Or loving enough to see what she had. Then why does it still hurt? Or was it dud because you loved her? And love doesn't stop just because someone proves they don't deserve it. Love is stubborn and illogical and inefficient as hell. I squeeze his hand. But it's also what makes us human. The fact that you can still hurt over someone who hurt you, that's not weakness. That's proof that she didn't break you. That you can still feel, still care, still love. She didn't take that away. He nods, slowly, processing this. Then, Dad, what if I can't do this tomorrow? What if I get in that courtroom and freeze? What if all my preparation doesn't matter? because I can't actually face her. Then, we'll handle it, I say simply. We'll ask for a recess. We'll regroup. We'll figure it out together, like we always do. You make it sound simple. It's not simple. Nothing about this is simple. But it is straightforward. Whatever happens tomorrow, we face it together. You're not alone in this. I know, he says. I've never been alone. Not really, because you stayed. The words land like a benediction, like absolution, like everything I've needed to hear for 13 years. I'll always stay, I tell him. We sit in the kitchen darkness, hands clasped across the table, and we don't need to say anything else. The tea cools, the house breathes. Outside, the sky slowly shifts from black to navy to gray, the world turning toward morning, whether we're ready or not. At 4:30, Elliot finally goes back to bed. At 5, I give up pretending I'll sleep and make coffee. At 6, I hear his shower start. At 7, we're both in the kitchen, dressed in the clothes we laid out last night, him in a dark suit Patricia helped us pick out, me in the only suit I own, both of us looking like we're going to a funeral. Maybe we are, in a way. The funeral for whatever hope remained, that Vanessa could be anything other than what she's proven herself to be. Ready? I ask, as we stand by the front door at 8:15, car keys in my hand. Elliot pats his jacket pocket, checking for the flash drive. It's there, small and blue, and full of truth. Ready, he says. We drive to the courthouse through morning traffic, the city waking up around us. People heading to jobs and schools and lives that don't include family court and battles over belonging. The courthouse is downtown, a gray building that's supposed to look imposing but mostly just looks tired. Patricia meets us on the steps, sharp in a navy suit, carrying a briefcase that probably cost more than my car. How are we doing? She asks. We're ready, I say. And I hope it's true. We climb the steps together, the three of us, against whatever Vanessa and Whitmore have prepared. Through security, up the elevator, down a hallway that echoes with our footsteps. Department 12, Family Court, Judge Sarah Morrison presiding. The courtroom is smaller than I expected, more intimate. Oak benches, fluorescent lights, a California state flag in the corner. Vanessa is already there, sitting at the defendant's table with Gordon Whitmore, wearing a cream-colored suit and an expression of maternal concern that looks rehearsed. She sees us. Our eyes meet across the courtroom. And for just a moment, I see something flicker in her face. Fear, maybe. Or recognition. The understanding that this isn't going to go the way she planned. Elliot walks past her without a glance, sits down at our table, pulls out his laptop with mechanical precision. He's in work mode now, emotions filed away, logic engaged. The bailiff enters. All rise. The Superior Court of California, County of Los Angeles, is now in session, the Honorable Sarah Morrison presiding. The judge enters a woman in her 60s, with steel-gray hair and eyes that miss nothing. Please be seated, she says. We're here today in the matter of Chen versus Hayes, case number FL 20258847. Are both parties ready to proceed? Yes, Your Honor, Patricia says. Yes, Your Honor, Whitmore echoes. Judge Morrison looks at Elliot, then at me, then at Vanessa. Before we begin, she says, I want to make something clear. This is a family court, and family matters are complex. But they're also simple. This is about what's in the best interest of a minor child, not what's fair to parents, not who deserves what's best for Elliot Hayes. Does everyone understand that? Yes, Your Honor. We all say, good. Then let's begin. Mr. Whitmore, you may present your opening statement. Gordon Whitmore stands, buttons his jacket, and begins to speak. And my son, my brilliant, damaged, perfectly imperfect son, sits very still, one hand resting on the blue flash drive in his pocket, waiting. Just let her talk, he'd said. So we do. Gordon Whitmore stands like a man who's never lost an argument, shoulders back, voice pitched to carry authority without aggression. He's wearing a charcoal suit that probably cost $3,000, and he moves around the courtroom like he owns it. Your Honor, he begins, this case is about a mother's love and a mother's rights. It's about a woman who made a difficult decision 13 years ago, a decision she regrets deeply, and who now seeks to rectify that mistake by being present in her son's life at a crucial moment. I feel Elliot tense beside me, a microscopic shift in his posture that no one else would notice. Patricia's hand moves to her notepad, pen poised. Vanessa Chen was 26 years old when her son was diagnosed with autism, Whitmore continues. 26, barely more than a child herself. She was overwhelmed, undersupported, and struggling with postpartum depression that went undiagnosed and untreated. She made the decision to leave, not because she didn't love her son, but because she believed, in that moment, that she couldn't give him what he needed. It's a good story. I'll give him that. It reframes abandonment as self-awareness, cowardice as sacrifice. The law recognizes that parents are human, Whitmore says, walking toward the judge now, hands open in a gesture of honesty. That we make mistakes. That mental health struggles are real and valid. Miss Chen never formally terminated her parental rights because she always hoped, someday, to be well enough to return to her son's life. Elliot's fingers tap against his thigh. 4 times. 4 times. 4 times. And now that day has come, Whitmore continues. Miss Chen has done the work. Therapy, treatment, personal growth. She's stable, successful, and ready to be the mother she couldn't be 13 years ago. She's not here to take anything from Elliot. She's here to give him what every child deserves, a mother's love and guidance. He pauses for effect, letting the words settle over the courtroom like snow. But there's another concern, Your Honor. Elliot Hayes is 17 years old and, by all accounts, exceptionally intelligent. He's built a software platform worth over $10 million. That's remarkable. That's extraordinary. But it also makes him a target. A vulnerable young man with autism, suddenly in possession of significant wealth, without the life experience to navigate the complexities of financial management, investment, and the people who will inevitably try to exploit him. Patricia's pen moves across her notepad, fast and sharp. I can see the words from where I'm sitting. Ableist assumptions. Contradicts psychoval. Miss Chen isn't here to take her son's money, Whitmore says, and the lie is so smooth I almost believe it. She's here to protect it, to ensure that her son, who processes the world differently, who by his own admission struggles with social situations, and recognizing manipulation isn't taken advantage of by unscrupulous individuals who see only dollar signs when they look at him. Elliot's jaw tightens. I want to reach over, squeeze his hand, remind him that this is just theater. But we're in court now. Every gesture is observed, interpreted, weaponized. The state of California recognizes that parents have both rights and responsibilities regarding their minor children, Whitmore continues. Miss Chen seeks to exercise those rights and fulfill those responsibilities now, before Elliot makes irreversible decisions about his assets. She seeks conservatorship not to control him, but to guide him, not to limit his independence, but to protect it. He turns, and for the first time, he looks directly at Elliot. Elliot is a brilliant young man. No one disputes that. But brilliance in coding doesn't equate to wisdom in life. And every parent, every good parent, knows that sometimes protecting your child means making decisions they don't understand yet. Decisions that feel restrictive, but are actually protective. Whitmore walks back to his table, picks up a document. Your Honor, we're requesting that the court grant Miss Bloud Chen joint conservatorship over Elliot's financial assets until he reaches age 18, at which point he can petition for full independence if he chooses. We're requesting that Miss Chen be recognized as having full parental rights and responsibilities, including the right to be consulted on major life decisions. And we're requesting that the court acknowledge what the law already states, that a parent who never formally terminated their rights retains those rights, regardless of their physical absence. He sets the document down with a soft thud that echoes in the quiet courtroom. This isn't about money, Your Honor. This is about family, about giving a mother the chance to be what she should have been all along, and about giving a young man with special needs the protection he deserves, whether he realizes he needs it or not. Special needs. The phrase hangs in the air like smoke. Elliot's fingers stop tapping. His stillness is absolute now, the kind of stillness that precedes either flight or fight. "Thank you, Your Honor," Whitmore says, and sits down. Judge Morrison nods. "Miss Mendez, your opening statement." Patricia stands, and there's something different in her posture, something sharp and ready. She doesn't walk around the courtroom like Whitmore did. She stands at our table, one hand resting lightly on the back of Elliot's chair, a gesture of solidarity and protection. "Your Honor," she says, her voice clear and precise. "Mr. Whitmore just told you a story about a struggling young mother who made a difficult decision. Let me tell you the truth about what actually happened." She picks up a folder from our table, one of the ones Elliot prepared, tab-organized and color-coded. On October 17, 2012, Vanessa Chen walked out of her home while her 4-year-old autistic son was eating breakfast. She left a note on the refrigerator. She took her clothes, her laptop, and her car. She did not take any photographs of her son. She did not leave a forwarding address. She did not call to check on him that day, or the next day, or any day for the next 13 years. Patricia's words land like stones dropping into still water, each one creating ripples. She didn't disappear because of postpartum depression, Your Honor. Postpartum depression affects mothers in the first year after birth. Elliot was 4 years old when she left. She didn't disappear because she was overwhelmed and undersupported. Mr. Hayes was working full-time and still managing half of all child care responsibilities. He offered to adjust his schedule, to hire help, to do whatever was needed. Miss Chen didn't want help. She wanted out. Across the courtroom, Vanessa's face remains carefully neutral, but I see her hands clasped tightly in her lap, knuckles white. The truth is that Vanessa Chen left because she met someone new, someone younger, wealthier, someone without the responsibilities of a special needs child. She left for a life that was easier, simpler, less complicated by a 4-year-old who needed more than she was willing to give. Patricia opens the folder, pulls out a single document. This is a public marriage record. Vanessa Chen married David Chen on April 14, 2015. That's 3 years after she left. April 14th, Your Honor. Do you know what else happened on April 14th? That's Elliot's birthday. She got married on her son's 6th birthday. The courtroom is silent, except for the court reporter's fingers on her machine, capturing every word. For 13 years, Marcus Hayes raised Elliot alone. He attended every doctor's appointment, every therapy session, every IEP meeting. He learned about sensory processing disorders and proprioceptive input. He learned to recognize the signs of a meltdown before it happened. He learned to communicate with a child who experienced the world differently than most people do. He did this without child support, without co-parenting, without a single phone call or email from the woman who now claims she was always planning to return. Patricia sets down the folder and picks up another one, this one thicker, full of papers that I recognize as the receipts I kept, the documentation of 13 years of solo parenting. Mr. Whitmore wants you to believe that Miss Chen's absence was temporary, that it was justified by mental health struggles, that she retained her parental rights through some kind of passive connection. But the evidence tells a different story. A story of a woman who built a new life, who posted vacation photos on social media while her son was in the hospital with dangerous stress levels, who remarried and divorced and remarried again, who worked and traveled and lived, all without a single attempt to contact the child she now claims she always loved. She pauses, and when she speaks again, her voice is softer but somehow more devastating. And then, Your Honor, something changed. Elliot Hayes, through 3 years of independent work, built a software platform. That platform got media attention. That platform received offers from venture capital firms. And suddenly, after 13 years of silence, Vanessa Chen remembered she had a son. Patricia picks up the local newspaper article, the one with Elliot's photo, and the headline about his success. This article was published on December 3, 2025. Miss Chen appeared at the Hayes home with her lawyer on December 18th. 15 days, Your Honor. End quote. 57 Ds. She couldn't find her son for 13 years. but she found him in 15 days after learning he had money. I watch Whitmore's face. He's making notes, unbothered, as if Patricia's words are just noise he has to endure. But Vanessa's expression is cracking, just slightly. I see the moment she realizes that this isn't going to be the easy victory she expected. Mr. Whitmore spoke about protecting Elliot, Patricia continues. Let me address that directly. Elliot Hayes doesn't need protection from the world. He needs protection from her. She gestures toward Vanessa without looking at her, a dismissal more effective than any insult. Dr. Sarah Holloway conducted a comprehensive psychological evaluation of Elliot at the court's request. Her report, which I know Mr. Second 10. Whitmore has read, concludes unambiguously that Elliot has full capacity to manage his own affairs. He's not vulnerable, he's not incapable, he's not, despite Mr. Whitmore's repeated implications, somehow less competent because he's autistic. Patricia's voice sharpens on the last word, a blade unsheathed. Elliot Hayes is a 17-year-old young man who taught himself to code at age 14, who built a complex software platform that professionals in the field have praised as innovative and sophisticated, who negotiated with venture capital firms and understood every clause in every contract, who, when asked by Dr. Holloway what he would do if he lost this case, had already researched the appeals process and created contingency plans extending 5 years into the future. She lets that sink in, then continues. He doesn't need a conservator. He doesn't need his mother to protect him. What he needs is for the court to recognize what Mr. N. Hayes has been trying to tell Miss Chen since she showed up with her lawyer, that parental rights are earned through presence and care, not claimed through genetics and opportunism. Patricia returns to our table, picks up one final document, a thin stack of papers that I don't recognize. Your Honor, we're asking the court to deny Miss Chen's petition for conservatorship. We're asking the court to recognize that 13 years of voluntary absence constitutes abandonment, regardless of whether formal termination papers were filed. And we're asking the court to acknowledge what the evidence will show, that Miss Chen is not here for her son. She's here for her son's money, and those are not the same thing. She sits down. The courtroom holds its breath. Judge Morrison looks between both tables, her expression unreadable. Thank you, counsel, she says. We'll take a 15-minute recess, then proceed with witness testimony. Court is in recess. The gavel falls. Everyone stands as the judge exits. Then the courtroom erupts in small movements. Whitmore conferring with Vanessa, the bailiff adjusting papers, the court reporter flexing her fingers. I turn to Elliot. He's staring straight ahead, face perfectly neutral. You okay? I ask quietly. He called me vulnerable, Elliot says, his voice flat. He implied I can't recognize manipulation. He treated my autism like a disability that makes me incompetent. I know he's going to regret that. There's something in his tone that makes me look closer. His hand is in his jacket pocket, fingers wrapped around the flash drive. What are you planning, I ask. Just letting her talk, he says. Remember? Patricia leans in, her voice low. The judge seems sympathetic to our side, but we can't be overconfident. Whitmore's going to call Vanessa first. Let her tell her sob story. We need to be ready for whatever emotional appeal she makes. We're ready, Elliot says, and his calm is unnerving. We step out into the hallway during the recess. Other people are here, other families, other cases, other lives falling apart in scheduled intervals. I see a woman crying by the water fountain, a man on his phone speaking in angry whispers, a couple sitting apart on opposite benches, not looking at each other. Family court, where love comes to die, or at least to be measured, weighed, legally dissected. Vanessa emerges from the courtroom. She sees us and stops, uncertain. For a moment, we're just standing there in the hallway, the family that used to be, divided by 13 years and 10 million reasons. She takes a step toward us. Elliot, she says, can we talk? Just for a minute? No, he says simply. Please, I just want you to understand. I understand perfectly. He interrupts. You want money. You're using parental rights as leverage to get it. You're framing financial opportunism as maternal concern. I understand all of it. Her face crumples. That's not fair. You don't know what I went through. I know exactly what you went through, he says, and his voice is still calm, still measured, still devastatingly precise. I've tracked your social media for 5 years. I know about your marriage to David Chen. I know about your divorce. I know about your job at Meridian Capital, your apartment in San Francisco, your vacation to Italy in 2019. I know everything you did while you weren't being my mother. She stares at him, shocked into silence. So when you go back into that courtroom and tell your story about struggling and suffering and wanting to make amends, Elliot continues, remember that I know the truth, and soon, everyone else will too. He walks past her, back toward the courtroom. I follow, leaving Vanessa standing in the hallway with tears running down her face and the first real understanding that she's already lost. Elliot, I say when we're out of her earshot, what are you going to do? He pulls the flash drive from his pocket, holds it up to the light, small and blue and full of truth. I'm going to show them who she really is, he says. Not who she pretends to be, not who her lawyer says she is, who she actually is. How? He smiles, just slightly. You'll see. When it's time. The bailiff calls us back in. We return to our seats. The judge enters, and we all rise and sit in the choreographed rhythm of courtroom procedure. Mr. Whitmore, Judge Morrison says, call your first witness. Your Honor, the petitioner calls Vanessa Chen to the stand. Vanessa stands, smooths her cream-colored suit, and walks to the witness stand with the careful grace of someone who's rehearsed this moment. She's sworn in, promises to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth. And then she begins to talk. And my son, my brilliant, patient, perfectly prepared son, leans back in his chair with that ancient calm in his eyes. Just let her talk, he'd said. So we do. And we wait for the moment when truth replaces performance. When the receipts become revelation. When the architecture of lies collapses under the weight of documented reality. It's coming. I can feel it. Vanessa Chen sits in the witness box, with her hands folded in her lap, the picture of maternal regret. The afternoon light streams through the courtroom windows, catching in her auburn hair, making her look softer than she is, more fragile. It's good staging. I wonder if she planned it, if she and Whitmore calculated the angles, the lighting, the optics. Miss Chen, Whitmore begins, his voice gentle, coaxing. Thank you for being here today. I know this is difficult. It is, she says, and her voice trembles just enough. But I need to do this. For Elliot. I feel my son tense beside me, a microscopic shift that only I would notice. Patricia's pen hovers over her notepad, ready to capture every word, every contradiction. Let's start at the beginning, Whitmore says. Tell the court about Elliot's early years. What was it like raising him? Vanessa takes a breath, and I watch her settle into the story she's prepared, the narrative she's polished, until it gleams. He was a beautiful baby, she begins. Perfect. 10 fingers, 10 toes, the darkest eyes I'd ever seen. But by the time he was 18 months old, I knew something was different. He didn't look at me the way other babies looked at their mothers. He didn't respond to his name. He'd scream for hours if his routine changed even slightly. She dabs at her eyes with a tissue that appeared from nowhere, perfectly timed. I took him to specialists. They said he was fine, just developing slowly. But a mother knows, doesn't she? A mother knows when something's wrong with her child. Elliot's fingers find his thigh, start tapping. 4 times, 4 times. I put my hand on his knee, a gentle pressure that means, I'm here, you're not alone. When did you learn he was autistic? Whitmore asks. He was 3, almost 4. The diagnosis was. She pauses, and I'll give her this. She's a good actress. The catch in her voice sounds genuine. It was devastating, not because I didn't love him, but because I knew how hard the world would be for him, how much he would struggle. And how did that diagnosis affect your marriage? It strained everything, Vanessa says. Marcus and I were young. We didn't know how to handle it. We'd argue about therapies, about what Elliot needed, about whether we should try to make him more normal, or just accept him as he was. Beside me, Elliot's jaw tightens. Because that's not how it was. I remember those arguments. I wanted to accept him, and she wanted to fix him. She wanted to force eye contact and punish stimming, and train the autism out of him like it was a bad habit instead of how his brain was wired. I started having panic attacks, Vanessa continues. I couldn't sleep. I'd lie awake thinking about his future, about what would happen to him when we weren't there to protect him. I was drowning, and I didn't know how to ask for help. Did you ask Marcus for help? I tried. She says, and the lie is so smooth I almost believe it. But he was working all the time. He'd come home exhausted, and I was exhausted, and we were both just surviving. There was no room for anything else. Patricia writes something on her notepad, underlines it twice. I can see the word from where I'm sitting. Timing. Because Vanessa's timeline doesn't match reality. I wasn't working all the time. I was home by 6 every night. I did bath time. I did bedtime stories. I was there. Tell the court about the day you left, Whitmore says, his voice still gentle, still understanding. Vanessa closes her eyes, and I watch her summon tears. They come obediently, rolling down her cheeks in photogenic streams. I woke up that morning and I couldn't breathe, she says. I looked at Elliot sitting at the breakfast table, arranging his cereal, and I thought, I can't do this anymore. I'm failing him. Every day I'm failing him. And he deserves better than a mother who can't handle his needs. So you left to protect him? Whitmore prompts. I left because I thought he'd be better off without me, she says. I thought Marcus was the stronger parent, the better parent. I thought if I removed myself from the equation, Elliot would have a chance at a more stable life. The rationalization is breathtaking in its audacity. She abandoned her child, but she's framing it as sacrifice, as maternal love expressed through absence. Miss Chen, Whitmore continues, why didn't you stay in contact? Why no phone calls, no letters? Because I thought a clean break would be easier for him, she says. I thought if I stayed in his life partially, it would just confuse him. I thought. She trails off, wipes at her eyes. I thought I was doing the right thing. I was wrong. I see that now. But at the time, in my state of mind, it seemed like the most loving choice I could make. I want to stand up. I want to object, to scream that this is revisionist history, that she didn't leave for Elliot's sake, she left for her own. She left because autism was hard, and her new boyfriend was easy. She left because she chose herself over her son. But Patricia's hand touches my arm. A silent reminder. Let her talk. Let her build her story. The higher she climbs, the harder she falls. When did you realize you wanted to reconnect with Elliot? Whitmore asks. I've wanted to reconnect for years, Vanessa says, but I was afraid. Afraid he'd hate me. Afraid Marcus would turn him against me. Afraid I'd waited too long and there was no way back. What changed? She looks directly at Elliot now, and her expression is so perfectly calibrated, love and regret and hope all mixed together in the exact proportions to tug at heartstrings. I saw the article about his software, she admits, and I was so proud. So incredibly proud. My son, my brilliant boy, had built something extraordinary, and I realized I'd missed so much. Too much. And if I didn't try now, I'd regret it for the rest of my life. So you came here because of the money? Whitmore asks. And I realize this is strategy. Get ahead of our accusations. Frame them on his terms. I came here because of my son, Vanessa says firmly. Yes, I saw that he'd created something valuable. And yes, that worried me, because I know Elliot. I know he's brilliant with computers and math and logic. But the world is full of people who will take advantage of a young man with autism and millions of dollars. I came here to protect him. Elliot makes a sound, not quite a laugh, not quite a scoff, but something between the two. Patricia touches his arm, a silent warning to stay neutral. Miss Chen? Whitmore says, there's been some suggestion that you've lived a comfortable life these past 13 years, that you remarried, traveled, built a career. Can you address that? Yes, she says. I did all those things. I was trying to heal, trying to become the person I needed to be so I could someday face my son again. I went to therapy. I worked on myself. I built a life that was stable enough that I could bring something valuable to Elliot, not just my apologies.
It's masterful, really. Every selfish choice reframed as preparation. Every absence redefined as growth. Every betrayal transformed into love.
What do you want from this court today? Whitmore asks. Vanessa looks at the judge, then back at Elliot.
I want a chance, she says simply. A chance to be his mother, to guide him through the challenges ahead, to make sure that when people look at him, they don't just see money, they see a young man who deserves protection and love and support. She pauses.
And I want to make amends for the 13 years I lost. I can't get that time back, but I can be here now, when he needs me most.
Thank you, Miss Chen, Whitmore says. No further questions, Your Honor. He sits down, satisfied. Vanessa dabs at her eyes again, the perfect image of a repentant mother. Judge Morrison looks at Patricia.
Cross-examination? Yes, Your Honor, Patricia says, standing. She doesn't approach the witness stand with Whitmore's gentle sympathy.
She stands at our table, and when she speaks, her voice is crisp, clinical, designed to cut through sentiment to reach fact. Miss Chen, you testified that you left because you thought Elliot would be better off without you. Is that correct?
Yes.
And you believed this because you felt you were failing as a mother?
Yes.
Did you discuss this feeling with a therapist before you left? Vanessa hesitates.
No, but
did you discuss it with Marcus? Not in so many words. Did you discuss it with any medical professional? Any friend? Any family member?
I was ashamed. I didn't want anyone to know I was struggling.
Patricia nods. So to be clear, you decided, unilaterally and without consultation, that your 4-year-old son would be better off without his mother.
You made this decision while experiencing what you describe as a mental health crisis, and you acted on that decision without seeking any professional guidance. Is that accurate?
When you put it that way, it sounds...
I'm not putting it any way, Miss Chen. I'm asking if my summary is accurate.
I suppose, yes. Patricia picks up a document from our table. This is your marriage certificate to David Chen, dated April 14th, 2015. 3 years after you left Elliot. Do you recognize this?
Yes.
April 14th is Elliot's birthday, correct? Vanessa pales slightly.
Yes.
I didn't realize the date when we scheduled...
You didn't realize it was your son's birthday when you scheduled your wedding?
We were working around venue availability. Miss Chen, yes or no? Did you get married on your son's 6th birthday?
Yes,
she whispers. Speak up, please.
Yes,
Vanessa says louder. Patricia sets down that document and picks up another. This one I recognize as a printout of social media posts. You testified that you've been wanting to reconnect with Elliot for years, that you were afraid and didn't know how. Is that correct?
Yes.
This is a Facebook post from March 2019. It's a photo of you in Italy with the caption, "Finally living my best life. No regrets, only gratitude." Do you remember posting this? Vanessa's face flushes.
That was general. No regrets, Patricia repeats. In March 2019, 7 years after leaving your son, you posted that you had no regrets?
I didn't mean it that way. How did you mean it?
I meant I was grateful for where I was in my life.
Were you grateful that you'd abandoned your autistic son 7 years earlier? Objection, Whitmore says. Argumentative. Sustained, Judge Morrison says, but her eyes are on Vanessa, and something has shifted in her expression.
Patricia continues, relentless. Miss Chen, you testified that you came here to protect Elliot from people who might take advantage of him. Do you believe your son is incompetent?
No, of course not.
Do you believe his autism makes him unable to manage his own affairs?
Not unable, just vulnerable. To whom? To what? To manipulation. To people who might... Have you spent any significant time with Elliot in the past 13 years?
No,
but... Have you observed how he manages complex situations? No. Have you seen him negotiate with venture capital firms? No. Have you reviewed Dr. Holloway's psychological evaluation that concludes he has full capacity for independent decision-making? I've read it, but you, despite having no recent contact with your son, despite having no expertise in psychology or autism or financial management, believe you know better than a court-appointed psychologist? I'm his mother, Vanessa says, and there's desperation creeping into her voice now. I know him in ways no psychologist can. Do you? Patricia interrupts. What's his favorite food? When he was little, he liked. Now. What's his favorite food now? I don't know the specific. What size shoe does he wear? I don't see how that's relevant. What are his triggers for sensory overload? He's autistic, so probably loud noises. Specifically, what specifically triggers him? Vanessa is silent. Does he have friends? Patricia asks. I assume? Names. Give me one name. I don't know. Vanessa admits quietly. What's his favorite subject in school? I don't know. What does he do when he's stressed? I don't know. What's his email address? I don't. Vanessa stops, realization dawning. You know I don't know these things. I haven't been there. Exactly, Patricia says. You haven't been there. And yet you're asking this court to give you control over his financial future, to grant you parental rights, to let you make decisions about his life. Based on what? Genetics? Guilt? The fact that you gave birth to him 17 years ago? I want to know these things, Vanessa says, tears streaming now. I want to learn. I want to be part of his life. Since when? Patricia asks. Since the article came out? Since you learned he had money? That's not fair. Miss Chen, I'm going to ask you a direct question, and I need you to answer honestly, under oath. If Elliot had not created this software, if there was no money, would you be here today? The silence stretches. Vanessa looks at Whitmore, at the judge, anywhere but at Patricia. I would hope so, she says finally. That's not what I asked. Would you be here if there was no money? I don't know. Maybe not right now, but eventually. Thank you, Patricia says. No further questions. She sits down. Vanessa remains on the stand, tears running down her face, the careful construction of her story crumbling around her. Redirect? Judge Morrison asks Whitmore. He stands, tries to salvage what he can, asks questions designed to let Vanessa explain, contextualize, humanize herself again. But the damage is done. You can see it in the judge's face, in the way the bailiff looks at Vanessa with something like pity. Finally, Whitmore gives up. No further questions, Your Honor. The witness may step down, Judge Morrison says. Vanessa returns to her table, and she won't look at us, won't look at Elliot. She sits down beside Whitmore and stares at the table like she's trying to memorize the wood grain. Mr. Whitmore, do you have additional witnesses? The judge asks. No, Your Honor. The petitioner rests. Judge Morrison looks at Patricia. Miss Mendez? Yes, Your Honor. The defense calls Elliot Hayes to the stand. My heart stops. We didn't discuss this. Patricia said she might call him, but we hadn't decided. Elliot stands. His hand goes to his jacket pocket, fingers closing around the blue flash drive. He walks to the witness stand with steady steps, raises his right hand, swears to tell the truth. He sits down, and he looks calm, ancient, ready. And I realize this is what he's been waiting for. Not Patricia's cross-examination of Vanessa, not the evidence we've already presented. This, his moment, his truth. Patricia approaches the witness stand. Elliot, thank you for being willing to testify. I know this is difficult. It's necessary, he says. Difficult and necessary aren't mutually exclusive. A ghost of a smile crosses Patricia's face. Can you tell the court, in your own words, what your relationship with your mother has been like for the past 13 years? Elliot looks directly at Vanessa for the first time since she appeared in our house 3 weeks ago. Non-existent, he says. I have 3 memories of her from before she left. After she left, I have 13 years of absence. Those are not compatible with a relationship. Did you try to contact her? 5 times. Via email. At ages 9, 10, 11, 12, and 13. All were ignored. How did that make you feel? Elliot pauses. That's a complex question. Emotionally, I experienced disappointment, confusion, and eventually acceptance. Logically, I concluded that I was not a priority for her. Both responses were valid. Patricia pulls out a laptop, sets it on the defense table. Elliot, you've prepared some evidence you'd like to present to the court. Is that correct? Yes. Can you describe what you have? Elliot pulls the flash drive from his pocket, holds it up. This contains documentation of my mother's life for the past 13 years, he says. Social media posts, public records, financial documents, photographs. It contains proof of what she did while she wasn't being my mother. He looks at Judge Morrison. Your Honor, with the court's permission, I'd like to present this evidence. It won't take long, but I think it's important that everyone understands who we're really talking about when we talk about Vanessa Chen. Judge Morrison leans forward, interested. What exactly is on that drive, Mr. Hayes? With Foreman, with ad in BA. With Fan? With Fan? Elliot's expression doesn't change. His voice remains calm, measured, devastating in its precision. The truth, he says simply. Just the truth. The courtroom holds its breath as Elliot walks to Patricia's laptop, flash drive in hand. The afternoon light has shifted, throwing long shadows across the floor, and I watch my son plug in the small blue device with steady fingers that betray none of the weight this moment carries. Your Honor, Patricia says, we'd like to display this evidence on the courtroom monitor. Judge Morrison nods. Proceed. The screen flickers to life. Elliot stands beside it, remote in hand, looking more like a developer presenting a product pitch than a teenager fighting for his future. But that's exactly what he is, methodical, prepared, devastating in his precision. This is a timeline, Elliot begins, and the screen shows exactly that a horizontal line marked with dates, events, photographs. It represents 13 years. The red markers indicate events in my life. The blue markers indicate events in my mother's life. He clicks. The red markers appear first sparse but significant. First day of kindergarten, first seizure, first friend, first hospitalization, first coded program. Then the blue markers flood the screen, dozens of them, hundreds maybe. New job, vacation to Hawaii, promotion, wedding, dinner party, spa weekend, new car, another vacation. Gallery opening, wine tasting, divorce, new apartment, another vacation. The contrast is staggering. My life, distilled to survival and milestones. Her life, full of choices and leisure, and the luxury of forgetting. Every blue marker, Elliot says, his voice steady, represents something she posted publicly on social media. Places she went, things she did, moments she chose to document and share with the world. He pauses. Notice that none of these blue markers overlap with the red ones. Not once in 13 years did her documented life intersect with mine. He clicks again. A Facebook post appears: Vanessa at a restaurant, wine glass raised, smiling. The date stamp reads, the 17th of October 2015, 3 years to the day after she left. This is her Facebook anniversary post, Elliot says. 3 years after abandoning me, she's celebrating at a restaurant that costs $200 per person. The caption says, 3 years ago today, I made the best decision of my life. She's referring to leaving her previous relationship to be with David Chen. The courtroom is silent, except for the hum of the monitor. She made the best decision of her life, Elliot repeats, on the anniversary of abandoning her son. Click. Another post. Vanessa on a beach, caption reading, finally learning to prioritize myself. This was posted in June 2018, Elliot says. The same month I was hospitalized for 3 days with severe anxiety. I was 13 years old, having panic attacks so severe the doctors worried about cardiac complications. She was learning to prioritize herself. Click. A LinkedIn post about a promotion. Click. Instagram photos from Italy.
Click, a blog post about finding your authentic self and releasing toxic relationships. Each image, each post, each carefully curated moment of Vanessa's life appears on screen, and with each one, I watch her sink lower in her chair, her face draining of color. I started tracking her when I was 12, Elliot continues. I wanted to understand why she left. I thought if I could see her life, I could find the moment she regretted it. The moment she thought about coming back. He looks at Vanessa now. I never found that moment, because it didn't exist. He clicks again, and a spreadsheet appears, detailed, color-coded, comprehensive. This is a financial analysis, he explains. On the left, you'll see what my father spent raising me over 13 years, $347,892 in direct costs. On the right, you'll see what my mother spent during that same period, based on her public posts and tax records I obtained through legal channels. The numbers are staggering. Vacations totaling over $60,000. Designer purchases documented on Instagram. A Tesla. Apartment in San Francisco that cost more than our entire house. In 13 years, Elliot says, she spent more on vacations than my father spent on my entire upbringing. She could have found us. She could have called. She could have sent child support. She did none of those things because she didn't want to. Not because she couldn't. Not because she was too overwhelmed or too broken. Because she chose not to. He turns off the slideshow, and the screen goes dark. The courtroom feels smaller somehow, the air heavier. Your Honor, Elliot says, looking directly at Judge Morrison now. My mother's lawyer argued that she left to protect me, that her absence was an act of love. But love doesn't post vacation photos while your son is in the hospital. Love doesn't celebrate the anniversary of abandonment. Love doesn't disappear for 13 years and only reappear when there's money. He pauses, and when he speaks again, his voice is softer but somehow more powerful. I don't need her protection. I don't need her guidance. I don't need her apologies or her explanations or her version of maternal love that only activates when it's financially beneficial. He looks at Vanessa one last time. What I needed was a mother. 13 years ago. And she chose not to be that. She doesn't get to choose to be that now just because it comes with a financial benefit. He pulls the flash drive from the laptop, holds it up. This drive contains over 3,000 pieces of documentation. Every post, every photo, every public record. I'm submitting it as evidence not to hurt her, but to show the truth. She had a life, a full, rich, documented life, and I wasn't in it. Not because she couldn't include me, because she didn't want to. He returns to our table, sits down beside me. His hands are steady. His breathing is even. He's done what he came to do. Across the courtroom, Vanessa is crying not the careful, calibrated tears from earlier, but ugly, broken sobs. Whitmore's hand is on her arm, but she's shaking her head, trying to speak and failing. Judge Morrison leans back in her chair, and I see something in her expression that wasn't there before. Not just understanding, but anger. The righteous anger of someone who's just watched a child prove, with receipts and precision, exactly how little he mattered to the person who should have loved him most. We'll recess for today, the judge says quietly. Closing arguments tomorrow morning at 9. Court is adjourned. The gavel falls. And it sounds like the end of something, or maybe the beginning. The next morning arrives clear and cold. The kind of February day where the sky is so blue it hurts to look at. We drive to the courthouse in silence. Elliot staring out the window at the city waking up around us. Me gripping the steering wheel and trying to breathe normally. Whatever happens, I tell him as we pull into the parking garage. I'm proud of you. I know, he says. But we're going to win. You sound certain. I am certain. He looks at me with those ancient eyes. Because I showed them the truth, and truth is stronger than performance. In the courtroom, Vanessa looks diminished somehow, smaller than yesterday. Her cream suit is wrinkled, her makeup smudged at the edges. She doesn't look at us when we enter. Judge Morrison calls the court to order. Closing arguments. Mr. Whitmore, you may proceed. Whitmore stands, but the confidence from yesterday is gone. His closing is brief, Perfunctory, rehashing parental rights, mental health struggles, second chances. He doesn't mention the flash drive. He doesn't address Elliot's evidence. He can't.
Miss Mendez? The judge says.
Patricia stands. Your Honor, the evidence speaks for itself. For 13 years, Vanessa Chen lived a life of her choosing, a life without her son in it. Not because she was incapacitated or unable, but because she chose absence over presence. And now she wants this court to reward that choice with access to her son's assets and future. She picks up Elliot's flash drive from our table. Mr. Hayes submitted 3,000 pieces of evidence, but really, he only needed one, the pattern. The pattern of a woman who posted, traveled, worked, loved, lived, and never once, in 13 years, searched for her son. That's not mental illness. That's choice. Patricia sets the drive down. Your Honor, we ask that you deny the petition for conservatorship, recognize Mr. Hayes' 13 years of sole custody, and protect Elliot from someone who sees him as an asset, not a person. She sits. The courtroom waits. Judge Morrison removes her glasses, cleans them, slowly, deliberately. When she speaks, her voice is measured, but firm. I've been on the bench for 23 years. I've seen hundreds of family cases, custody battles, parental rights terminations, conservatorships. And in all that time, I've learned that the law and justice don't always align perfectly. But today, they do. She looks directly at Vanessa. Miss Chen, I don't doubt you experience difficulties. I don't doubt that parenting a special needs child can be overwhelming. But difficulty doesn't excuse abandonment. Struggle doesn't justify 13 years of silence. And belated regret doesn't create entitlement. Vanessa's shoulders shake. Whitmore puts a hand on her arm. Your son didn't just document your absence, the judge continues. He documented your presence, your very active, very public presence, everywhere except in his life. That's not a mother who couldn't return. That's a mother who chose not to. Judge Morrison puts her glasses back on, looks at her notes. The petition for conservatorship is denied. Elliot Hayes has demonstrated through expert evaluation and his own testimony full capacity to manage his affairs. His autism is not a disability that requires protection. It's a difference that he's navigated successfully for 17 years with the support of his father. I feel Elliot's hand find mine under the table, squeeze once. Furthermore, the judge says, I'm granting Mr. Marcus Hayes' counterpetition for formal termination of Miss Chen's parental rights. While the statute of limitations prevents ordering retroactive child support, this court recognizes that 13 years of voluntary absence constitutes abandonment under California law. Vanessa makes a sound, half sob, half gasp. Miss Chen, you will have no legal claim to Elliot's assets, no parental rights, no decision-making authority. When he turns 18 in 3 months, he will be legally and practically an adult who has no obligation to you whatsoever. The judge pauses. You made your choice 13 years ago. Today, this court honors that choice by making it permanent. The gavel falls. It's over. Outside the courthouse, the sun is bright enough to make us squint. Patricia is smiling, making calls to finalize paperwork. Elliot stands on the steps, face tilted toward the light, breathing. How do you feel? I ask. He's quiet for a long moment. Lighter, he says finally. Like I've been carrying something heavy and I finally got to set it down. You did good in there, Elle. What you presented was necessary, he interrupts. Not revenge, just truth. There's a difference? Always, he says. Revenge is about hurting someone. Truth is about freeing yourself. Patricia joins us, tucking her phone away. The paperwork will be filed by end of week. After that, she has no legal standing. It's done. Thank you, I tell her, for everything. Thank you, she says, looking at Elliot. In 20 years of practicing law, I've never seen a client more prepared or more composed. You're remarkable. Elliot doesn't respond to the compliment. He never knows how. But he nods once, accepting it. We drive home through midday traffic, the city bright and loud around us. When we pull into our driveway, Elliot sits for a moment, not moving. Dad? Yeah? Do you think she'll try again? After I'm 18? I don't know. Maybe.
And if she does, I turn off the engine. Look at my son, this brilliant, damaged, perfectly imperfect person who taught himself to document truth because the world demanded proof. Then you'll do what you've always done. I say, you'll show her the receipts, you'll let her talk, and you'll prove, with precision and patience, exactly who you are and what you're worth. He nods slowly. Just let her talk. Just let her talk. We go inside. The house is quiet, familiar, ours. Elliot disappears to his room, and I hear the familiar click of his keyboard starting up, returning to code, to the language that makes sense when people don't. I make coffee. Stand at the kitchen window. Watch the world turn. Somewhere across the city, Vanessa is dealing with her loss. Somewhere, she's realizing that you can't absent yourself from a life for 13 years and then demand entrance when it becomes valuable. But here, in our house, in our life, there's only peace. The quiet after the storm. The silence that follows truth. My phone buzzes. A text from Elliot. Thank you for staying. I type back. Always. 3 letters. 1 word. Everything. Outside, clouds drift across the blue sky. Inside, my son is building something new. Not a defense against abandonment, but a future built on his own terms. And I'm here. Like I've always been. Like I always will be. The rest is just noise.